Welcome back to the channel. Today we will travel through the pages of What If Deku Gained Powers to Change His Fate Part 10. The link to the story will be in the description below, and if you want an update of the current series, join the Discord. Now let's start. Chapter 28. Yusuke's eyes were glued to the painting in his hands. He hadn't realized the treasure from the palace would materialize in the real world like this. He barely paid any mind to the others, inspecting the woman and child with great fixation. The true Sayuri, you're not gonna get all teary-eyed and say stuff like mom, are ya? Yusuke pulled his gaze away from the painting, sparing a glance at Ryuji. Ow. Just in time to see Makoto give him a swift kick in the side. Yusuke couldn't stop a small smirk from playing on his lips, watching as Makoto glared down at Ryuji, while he could only pout silently. To think this painting would be the cause of his distortion, Yusuke said, his eyes trailing back to the true Sayuri. The only saving grace is that my mother won't know what transpired. Considering that the original painting has been altered back at Madaram's atelier, this is now the last real self-portrait of your mother, ironically enough, Morgana said, Yusuke hearing the sympathy in his voice. It might have taken some time, but it's finally back in your hands, Yusuke, Anne said, giving a kind smile. I'm thankful for it, Yusuke said, giving his own gentle smile as he stared down at the painting. However, it's impossible for this painting to be acknowledged by society, now. That's a shame, but maybe that's not so bad, Izuku said this time, his expression thoughtful. After all, your mom made it for you. Not for anyone else. It was difficult for Yusuke to reconcile to the two sides of Izuku Midoriya. In the metaverse, he was a fearless leader who commanded unquestioning loyalty. But in the real world, he was soft-spoken and considered. You're right, perhaps having this painting to myself is for the best, Yusuke nodded, looking at the woman. So, this is my mother. There's no way I would remember her face clearly, but I was right about that rush of emotion I felt when looking upon it. The others remained silent, giving Yusuke a moment as he cherished the painting. He stroked his fingers across the woman's face, doing his best to recall his mother. But no matter how hard he tried, it seemed to be burp. The quiet peace Yusuke had was rudely interrupted by a belch. Yusuke's eyes trailed back up, looking to see Anne grimacing. Stop that. I will smack you again, Makoto threatened, her red eyes narrowing at Ryuji. Yusuke hadn't known the third-year student long, but he was quite aware by now just how scary she could be. Sorry. So, what are you gonna do now? Ryuji asked, trying to avoid eye contact with Makoto. We're gonna keep going after bad guys like Madaram from here on out. Yusuke tucked the painting under his arm. Why do you pursue villains like Madaram? To get back at shitty adults and society in general, I guess, Ryuji admitted. And to give courage to people who are suffering cause of selfish adults. Heroes do everything they can to save people, but sometimes it isn't enough, Izuku said this time, his brow knitting seriously. People sometimes get overlooked. They lose the courage to stand up for themselves because they feel like they've been forgotten or ignored. We want to save people who feel that way and give them the strength to move forward. Courage, You mean courage to stand up for themselves? Yusuke asked, holding the tip of his chin in thought. Will that make them happy? Maybe not right away. If it was that easy we'd all be happy, Makoto shook her head, standing next to their leader. But giving them that courage is the first step towards letting them seek it for themselves. Yeah. Who knows if it'll turn out good for everyone, Ryuji nodded, stuffing his hands into his pockets. But we won't know until we try. In other words, it all depends on the person, Yusuke muttered, a satisfied smile spreading across his lips. The same could be said about myself. I also suffered at the hands of a selfish adult. Moreover, if we investigate these palaces, it may expand my artistic repertoire. You really do only think about art, huh? You're impressive, Ryuji smirked at him. So, you'll stay on the team with us? Anne asked with some eagerness. Yes, if you'll have me. I won't take part in any inelegant plans, though. Don't worry. Makoto and Izuku have got us covered on that front, Anne giggled, causing Ryuji to roll his eyes. Besides, we have a rule that says we decide on targets unanimously. We'd be happy to have you stay on the team, Kitagawa-san. If that's really what you want to do, Izuku said, giving the artist a dazzling smile. No complaints on my end. We'll be counting on you, Kitagawa-kun, said Makoto. We'll definitely be able to give our calling cards some extra oomph with Yusuke's help. Morgana nodded in agreement. I will try and live up to those expectations, Yusuke said, giving a short bow of his head. The smile he had fell for a moment, his eyes falling to the ground. I wasn't able to do much against Madaram's shadow in the end. I promised to improve. Huh? What do you mean? You did know. As his former student, I should have played a much larger role in his defeat. Part of me feels I was unable to contribute as much as I should have, Yusuke cut Izuku off, shaking his head. But I lacked the strength and wit to make much of a difference in the fight. It was thanks to all of you we succeeded. It wasn't all on you, Yusuke. "It was all of us working together," Anne said with concerned eyes. "I'm aware. And don't worry, I won't dwell on this for long. Instead, I will push myself to improve so I might be able to change the tide of battle if need be," Yusuke declared, surprising the others with his conviction. The others looked at one another, sharing small smiles of understanding before Izuku spoke first. "I understand, Kitagawa-san. I look forward to seeing how you improve. I will do my utmost to stand by those words. Hey, since you're officially a member of the team, we all need to exchange contacts with you," Anne pointed out. "That makes sense to me. Let's." Yusuke pulled out his phone along with everyone else, using their infrared sensors exchanged their contacts in an instant. "There. I'll be ready for a call whenever you need me. I'll be sure to add you to the group chat whenever I get the chance," said Izuku with a nod. There was the enthusiasm that Yusuke also saw in their leader from time to time. He was still a bit of a quandary to Yusuke, even though they already trusted each other with their lives. Perhaps a chance will arise to change that. "Setting that aside, the thing Madaram said about another intruder is still bugging me." Morgana sighed, bring Yusuke out of his thoughts. "The only clue we have was that they wore a black mask. For all we know, there could be more than one person, too," Anne pointed out. "And with the palace gone, there's no way for us to find out more." Ryuji sighed, kicking the ground beneath his feet. "Perhaps I can find something out," Yusuke volunteered, giving a hopeful smile. "If Madaram knows anything, I'll be sure to try and find out about it." "Are you sure?" Anne said with a sympathetic frown, but Yusuke shook his head. "It'll be best if I keep an eye on him until his confession, either way." He shook his head. "I'd like to help in any way I can. Considering it only happened in the palace, I doubt Madaram knows about it, but maybe there's a chance he does know something." Izuku gave a brisk nod of approval. "We'll leave it to you, Kitagawa-san. I'll see what I can discern," Yusuke said, smiling at his trust. "Still, it seems I'll be a man of two trades from here on, an artist and a phantom thief." "Well, you only live once, after all." Ryuji and Anne gave him odd looks, while Makoto and Izuku laughed a bit sheepishly. "What is it? Was it something I said? You have expelled one who was once stained in vanity. You are now one step closer to completing your rehabilitation. This is a delightful thing, indeed." Thanks," Izuku nodded. It had been some time since he was last summoned to the Velvet Room through his dreams rather than walking in of his own volition. So when he woke up in the cell, he was admittedly a bit surprised and somewhat out of it. "Speak louder when showing gratitude, inmate. You just received praise from our master." Carolyn snapped, putting her knuckles on her hips. Thank you very much." Izuku squeaked, giving a deep bow. "It is of little importance. What is troubling is the information you learned," Igor said, causing Izuku to look back up at him with wide eyes. "It seems another has found their way into the metaverse." "This is troubling news, indeed. You know about that. Can you tell me who it is?" Izuku asked. "That is beyond my knowledge." Igor's denial immediately caused Izuku to deflate. "But what is for certain is your rehabilitation is progressing smoothly. May your devotion to your rehabilitation grow even deeper. I have high hopes for you." Izuku could only sigh, disappointed he couldn't learn more regarding the Black Mask intruder. Still, it was undeniable that Igor was putting more trust in him, now. Smash full confidant. Rank 4, so nothing out of Madaram yet? No, not yet. Izuku and Ryuji slurped up piping hot ramen noodles. Ryuji had offered to take Izuku out, wanting to take a load off and relax after their taxing days spent closing up the palace. He was surprised that they were going all the way to Ajakubo for a bowl of ramen, but Izuku now understood why, his taste buds being taken for a ride. Ramen was a common commodity around Shibuya, but this little shop seemed to make a particularly flavorful broth. "Man, I love me some good noodles. Ramen's perfect after a workout." Ryuji grinned as he leaned back in his seat. "Light soup is perfect after a run, you know. I never would have thought about having ramen after working out, to be honest." Izuku smiled back, slurping up another bundle of noodles. "This place really is something special. Right, it's far as hell, but it's totally worth it." Ryuji gave a fervent nod. "We used to come here after practice sometimes," and Izuku frowned as Ryuji hesitated, the joy gone from his expression. I guess that's all in the past." An awkward silence followed, Ryuji scratching at his chest. "Is everything okay?" Izuku asked, unsure what he could do to fix the mood. "Nah, it's fine, just I've seen Nakoka and the others a few times after that whole thing." Ryuji bit his bottom lip. "But for some reason, it don't look like he's getting along with the others great." "I see, are you worried about him?" "Yeah, kinda." Ryuji glumly admitted. "I've been thinking about everything he said, about how the whole track team were putting up with Kamoshida's shit. And how I effed it all up for him. I think they're right." Izuku's eyes trailed to his bowl, his stomach twisting in conflict as he recalled their tongue lashing. It still upset him deeply. They don't even got a locker room. They stashed their stuff behind the gym, now. They can't even use any of the school gear, so they just jog around the block for practice. Ryuji-senpai. Izuku found his courage, meeting the faux blonde's eyes. You shouldn't have to carry that guilt. Ryuji bristled at Izuku's words, blinking. What do you mean? Izuku's lips formed into a thin line. He hadn't wanted to intrude on the topic, but Ryuji was honestly his best friend. If he was going to meddle, it would be for him. You might have been the one to get the team in trouble, but the team should have supported you. Ryuji's breath caught in his throat for a moment, looking for the right words as he scratched his head. I guess, but you know what it was like being under Kamoshida. No one could stand up to him. You did. Izuku's eyes hardened. When everyone else was scared, you stood up to him. Not just when you were in track, but even when our lives were at stake. Izuku never forgot the awe he felt when Ryuji had taken a stand to save him. A complete stranger, and Ryuji had acted without hesitation to put himself out there for Izuku. He had failed to think up a real escape, but Ryuji's actions spurred him into acting. They had both moved without thinking, hoping to save the other. It was another trait that Izuku felt they shared, even if not mentioned. A lot of good that did me, though. They woulda just got the same treatment. Ryuji denied, looking away as the guilt mounted. Maybe, but look, it's okay man. I gotta live with their hate and I don't blame 'em for it. Ryuji dismissed his words but gave Izuku a smile. Still thanks for trying to make me feel better about it. Izuku opened his mouth but closed it silently. It didn't look like he was going to convince Ryuji anytime soon to not bear that guilt. Ryuji was stubborn like that and would take all blame rather than rightfully point out their own failings as a team. I might not be able to convince him now, but Ryuji-senpai. Izuku met his eyes again, giving him a confident smile. If we ever have to face a problem like that again, we'll take whatever consequences on together. Ryuji's eyes turned white as plates. Where'd that come from? Izuku suddenly felt flustered, realizing that it might have sounded like he was trying to be cool. Well, I'm just saying that if you run into trouble like that again, I'll support you no matter what. Izuku readjusted in his seat and smiled again. We're all outcasts in one way or another and we stick together. We're your team now, after all. Ryuji looked stumped by his words, briefly silent before grinning bashfully. You're pretty good at making little speeches like that now, you know. Ryuji punched his shoulder lightly. Thanks, leader. You're right. We met everyone cause we're outcasts, so it ain't so bad. Let's get into all kinds of crazy shit together. Right. Izuku felt truly close with Ryuji. He had become the one person he felt he could do anything with. The first person, aside from Makoto, that Izuku felt like would go through hell and back with and for him. And he would do the same. Smash Chariot Confidant. Rank 4. This is perfect. I think big places like this are just what I need for my training. Oh okay, then. Though I'm still not sure what kind of training this is. Izuku laughed sheepishly, sitting in front of Anne. She had asked to go out after school, mentioning something about training her heart before taking Izuku to Inokashira Park. Well, like I said, we're gonna work on the strength of my heart, Anne declared. She put her hands on her hips as she straightened out. Morgana said that personas grow stronger when our hearts do, right? Well, I think I've figured out the perfect way to do it. Oh? How's that? Izuku asked, unsure of what Anne might have cooked up for them. I think having a strong heart means not letting anything get under your skin. Anne raised her index finger. So basically, I want you to say stuff to me and I'll try and not be fazed by it. Oh, I guess that makes sense. Izuku's eyes trailed to the side, a bead of sweat trailing down his cheek. I think she's on the right track, but I doubt this will help. Right. Okay, Izuku. Hit me with your best shot. Anne said, puffing her chest out as she waited for him to start. Oh, right now I'm okay. Izuku fished for the worst insults he could muster. You're not very smart. Come on, you can do better than that. Anne said, giving him a soft glare. Make it hurt. Why you're a dumbus. Izuku visibly cringed after saying the word. Sorry. I know, that's better. Keep it up. Anne encouraged. Why you're not dressed properly. Okay, and your tea too pretty. Oh, why thank you. Wait, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. Anne complained, stomping a foot as she caught herself. Izuku threw his arms up in surrender, looking away from Anne in shame. You're supposed to bring on the insults. I don't think I'm very good at that. Izuku admitted with a shy laugh, rubbing the back of his head. Ryuji-senpai would probably be better for this. Knowing him, he'd probably take it too far and piss me off. Anne hugging her arms around her chest. She blinked, holding her chin in thought. Wait, maybe that's a good thing for this training. Still every time we hang out, he likes to push my buttons. Oh, I know. You'll basically be the first level of training to beat before moving on to Ryuji at level 2. Izuku finally sighed, his shoulders sagging. Sorry, Anne-senpai, I'll be honest. I don't think this will help your heart get stronger. You don't think so? Anne bit her bottom lip, giving it some thought. Well, now that you mention it, maybe it's not. I've got no idea how to strengthen my heart. Guess I'll have to stick to taking Ryuji's offer. You guys have been hanging out when I'm busy, right? Well, yeah, I guess we have. Every now and then we'll go shopping together or grab a bite. He can be a jerk, but he can be pretty fun, too, Anne smiled, looking at Izuku again. Plus, he did mention helping me work out at the gym, sometime. Now that we're phantom thieves, I figured I might take him up on it sometime. Maybe we can all go together. Ryuji-senpai already works out sometimes after school, so it'd be fun to do it together. Izuku smiled as he said that. I'd totally be down for that. It's been a while since I worked out though, so try and go easy on me. Anne giggled a bit. Suddenly, her phone rang. She pulled it from her jean pocket, taking a look at the message displayed. Sorry, I just got an email from my agency. The next shoot is really far, Anne sighed in disappointment before raising a brow. Huh. Looks like they wanted to make sure I knew exactly where. What do you mean? They sent me a reminder to pay exact attention to when and where the shoot will be. Apparently, a few models have been missing shoots lately. Then, when asked, they said that they heard there was a change in schedule. It sounds like a bunch of shoots have been hectic with all the scrambling they've had to do for substitutes. That's not good. Have you had it happen to you yet? Izuku asked. Nope, I haven't missed a single shoot yet. Anne said with a bit of pride, pushing some hair out of her eyes. It confuses the staff to see a sub show up. Hopefully that doesn't happen to me. Though, ironically enough, that's how I got my start in modeling. Oh. How'd that happen? It was when I was living in Finland with my parents. They were running a big event when they ended up not having enough models. Izuku raised his brow in surprise. Your parents work with models. Oh, I haven't told you. My parents are both fashion designers who put on some seriously extravagant shows. They jump from country to country, so I only see them for half a year. Anne explained. Oh, I see. I kind of know what that's like, Izuku nodded. My dad is overseas for a lot of his work, so it was just me and my mom at home most of the time. He probably won't be home for a while, either. I can't imagine what it's like with both parents gone. I've gotten used to it now. It was tough when I was younger, as it was me and my live-in caretaker most of the time. And because we moved around, I didn't have a lot of friends, Anne said, scratching her cheek awkwardly. Sorry, that got dark fast, huh? She laughed. It's okay. I think that's something we have in common, too. Izuku laughed awkwardly. He brushed the topic aside with a wave of his hand. That said, you really like modeling, huh? It can be pretty fun and honestly, when I'm doing it, I feel a bit like I'm connecting with my parents. It's definitely a fun hobby to have, but I don't think I'd want to make a living off of it. Anne admitted, her expression becoming somewhat conflicted. Why's that? Because that's where Kamoshida first spotted me. Then the rumors started and Izuku winced at the thought. Don't worry, it doesn't bother me like it used to. Besides, the Phantom Thieves are my top priority now. Nobody can be my substitute there, and that's why I want to get stronger. Izuku smiled at Anne's reassurance, giving a brisk nod. I understand. I'll help you get stronger however I can then, Anne-senpai. Thanks. I'll be counting on you, Izuku. Anne said, pumping her fist at her side. It might have seemed small, but Izuku felt closer to Anne. He couldn't lose to her enthusiasm if he was going to let everyone. Smash Lover's confidant. Rank 3. You know, well, I have some mixed feelings about my Phantom Thief suit. There is one thing that kind of bums me out about it, Anne said, leaning on one leg and putting a hand under her chin. Oh, what is it? The fact that it's so sexy. And no. Well, yes, but not that. I kind of wish it was bunny themed. Anne explained, her cheeks turning a bit rosy. Izuku's pupils shrank, his face suddenly becoming red. And not in that way. And more like I don't know, sort of like you're into heroes, right? Why yeah, a bit. Izuku's gaze drifted to the side, not wanting to say exactly what extent he was. You know that famous female hero lately? Maruko? Anne asked, causing Izuku to snap his attention back up in alert. Oh, the current number 6 hero, of course I know her. She's a rising star from the last generation, having climbed into the top 10 in just 3 years. His eyes sparkled as he described the pro hero. I think I underestimated how much you were into heroes, Anne giggled after seeing his enthusiasm. But yeah, that's her. To this day, she's definitely my favorite hero. When I was younger, I first saw her on TV when she made her debut. Even though she's new, she's so confident and tough. She says whatever's on her mind and acts as the kind of hero she wants to be. She dished out justice her way. I wanted to be like her, someday. I guess I kinda am now, even if it's on the opposite side of the law, huh? Izuku's eyes shined at her words, never realizing that even Anne wanted to be a hero as a child. He gave an earnest smile, nodding his head briskly. Yeah. Even though we're doing things differently, I think you are. We're dealing out justice our way. Anne smiled back and giggled. Yeah, you're right. So let's keep it up. Maybe one day, we'll even get Maruko to acknowledge us, too. Yeah. It's been so long since I was last here. The two had arrived at the gym in t-shirts and sweats. The facilities were tailor-made for mixed martial artists. Cracked punching bags hung from the ceiling on one side of the room and a red mat was spread across the entirety of the floor. A boxing ring sat at the center of the establishment. There were quite a few other people working out already, music echoing across the gym as the familiar scent of sweat wafted through the chilled air. I'm surprised, Koto-san. I thought you would train at a dojo to practice your aikido, Izuku admitted, though was no less interested in all of the possible workout equipment available. I used to, but I haven't been able to visit in a long time, Makoto said, twisting her upper body to loosen it up. I haven't worked out here often considering all the studying I've been doing. But since this still has our memberships here, I figured it would be a good place to take you for some training. Seems like everyone wants to train together now, Izuku laughed, giving Makoto a determined smile. Okay. What should we work on? It's good to see you're excited, Makoto said, smirking as she placed her hands on her hips. For today, I think working on your stance and footwork is essential. Is it that bad? Not really. You seem natural when you're fighting. Makoto shook her head. But it does look a bit rough at times. You'll be able to put more force behind your attacks and react faster if we clean it up a little. Izuku gave a quick nod. Oh okay then. Let's do it. First, assume your usual fighting stance for me. Just pretend you have the staff in your hand since we don't have anything to emulate it. Izuku nodded, squaring his feet up and imagining that his bow staff was in his grip. Makoto walked around, inspecting his stance and giving a quiet hum. Your legs are too wide. Tighten it up just a little bit. You want a strong base to stand on while also being able to move when you need to. If your feet are too wide, you'll easily be knocked off balance. She gave him a quick shove to illustrate this, sending him a few steps backward. Okay. Izuku tried to picture Makoto's old aikido stance, narrowing his legs more and holding the imaginary staff closer to his body. Better. Now, do a forward strike. Izuku did as ordered, doing a quick shuffle forward and jabbing at air. You're taking too long to plant your front foot. Do it in one fluid motion. Again. Makoto demanded, her voice becoming stern. Yes. Izuku repeated the action, trying to pay more mind to the timing of his steps. Better. Again. Alright, that was pretty good. Let's take a break. Makoto said, handing Izuku a clean white rag. Both of them were dripping with sweat after practicing their form and technique for close to an hour. Izuku hunched over and panted while wiping the sweat from his brow. I forgot how intense you can be while training. I can't cut corners in training you considering dangerous the metaverse is. Even with our personas to protect us, we need to be in top shape, Makoto pointed out. Yeah, you're right. Thanks for taking the time to train with me, Koto-san. I know I've got a lot of room for improvement, Izuku admitted, flexing his hands in front of his face. I'm glad to have you as my teacher. Teacher might be pushing it. I may have earned my black belt in Aikido, I still had a lot to learn before I dropped it, Makoto said. She took a seat at a bench by the lockers. Izuku moved to sit next to her, the brunette handing him a water bottle. It's a shame, too. Because I didn't have time for full lessons, I've mostly just been working out and practicing what I know. Still, you're so good. What's wrong with the level you're at? Izuku asked, tilting his head curiously. Well, simply put, it's just not good enough. At least not good enough for what I want to do. Makoto said, looking up in thought. After all, I've still never been able to beat Sis. When they were younger, Makoto often challenged Sei to spars. Despite Makoto's constant training, Sei always stayed one step ahead of her. I forgot all about that. Does Sei Onisan still take kickboxing? That's right. Despite her busy schedule, she still squeezes in a few kickboxing classes here and there. Even when she can't, she trains at a small gym at her office, Makoto explained, releasing a sigh. I'm a bit ashamed that I've let my own practice fall to the wayside. I see, so you're still trying to beat her? Yep. I mean, I haven't really been pursuing that thought lately, but now that I'm back at the gym training with you, it makes me want to try again, Makoto said, a small smile spreading across her lips. I want my sister to acknowledge me, after all. So even though I'm helping you, you're still helping me, too. So thank you, Midori. Izuku opened his mouth to respond, but he couldn't think of anything to say. Memories of training side by side with Makoto began to play in his head. She was instructing him then just as she was doing now. One thought from back then continues to ring true now. I want Koto-san to acknowledge me, too. Izuku felt a deeper understanding begin to build between him and Makoto. It seems that, even as old friends, there were still things they could learn about each other. Smash Priestess confidant. Rank 3 Izuku hopped to his feet, startling Makoto. Come on. Let's do a few more drills. I want to work on my form some more. Izuku said, giving a dazzling smile to the older girl. Makoto raised a brow before smiling. That's the spirit. Alright, let's go over your defensive stance again. Makoto said, crossing her arms. Right. Izuku inhaled a breath as he imagined a staff in his grip, positioning his feet the way Makoto told him to. The older girl watched him with a small smile, nodding. Perfect. Although more hands-on training would be nice, Makoto put a hand to her chin and thought. Maybe we should try going to my old dojo sometime, will they let us train there? Izuku asked, eyes perking up curiously. My master doesn't mind having former students coming in and using the dojo for training. So long as we get permission in advance, I think we should be fine, Makoto said with reassurance. It'll give us a chance to use your staff in a safe environment without having to worry about hitting other people. I see. Well, even if we can't, maybe we can go to the park sometime and train there, instead. Izuku suggested. That's not a bad idea either. But we'll leave that thought for next time. Back into your defensive stance. Right. Alright. I want you to make a pot of coffee by yourself. Izuku blinked owlishly when he heard that, his eyes darting to the assortment of coffee jars sitting on the bar shelves. He had spent a good portion of the night helping Sojiro in the last hours of work at LeBlanc. Now that the store was empty, it seemed that Sojiro had plans for him. Really? Which one would you prefer? Izuku said, putting a finger on his chin. Try something you like this time. If you can make a cup you enjoy, you'll be able to make a cup others enjoy. Sojiro was tending to a pot of curry in the kitchen. It doesn't have to be complicated. Give any one of them a try. Izuku bit his bottom lip, narrowing his eyes at the different labels. Sojiro had shown him that making good coffee was a lot more than picking a grind and throwing it in a filter. Sojiro was laid back, but he meant business when it came to his brew. Izuku walked along the rows of bean jars behind the counter and stopped on the Brazilian beans. It was a bittersweet, almost chocolatey variety he had become accustomed to drinking whenever Sojiro offered him a cup that wasn't the house blend. He scooped out some beans and put them into the hand-cranked grinder. After soaking the filter for 5 minutes and heating up the water, he poured the grind into the hopper and gently pushed down on it with a bamboo paddle the way Sojiro had done before. He waited exactly 70 seconds before removing the hopper from the flame and giving the coffee 10 stirs. Okay, I think that's good. He waited another minute to let the coffee drain into the bowl and poured it into a white cup. With a shaky breath, Izuku took a short sip. It scalded the tip of his tongue, but he swallowed it nonetheless. A small smile spread across his face, pleased with the result. You break a sweat there? Izuku jumped when he heard Sojiro's voice, the coffee shop owner giving a small chuckle as he stepped around the bar and sat in one of the stools. Relax. I'm not making you serve the coffee to anyone but me. Pour me a cup, would you? Right, 1 second. Izuku quickly did as asked, pouring another cup and passing it to Sojiro on a small saucer. The barista took a quick sip, giving a somewhat satisfied hum. Brazilian, huh? Good choice. A bit on the dark side, but with its own distinct flavor, Sojiro smacked his lips, giving Izuku a critical gaze. The flavor's a bit bland and could use a little less heat on the beans, but not bad. I'll acknowledge your effort, especially for your first time brewing on your own. Izuku gave a relieved sigh. I'll try to make a better cup next time. Good. Here, now that I've seen what you can do, I'll go over what's needed to make it just right, said Sojiro, setting the cup down and stepping behind the bar. There are 3 factors when it comes to making a good cup of coffee. Grind, heat, and time. Grind, heat, and time. Izuku whipped out a small pocket notebook labeled Coffee Brewing 101. Sojiro raised a brow and gave a short chuckle before continuing. Such a strange kid. Not that he's the first I've taken care of. For the siphons we have here, we're aiming for a medium fine grind. We'll go over the specifics later, so just keep those words in mind or written down. Sojiro watched him dot away at the notebook like his life depended on it. Medium fine, got it. He replied, not looking up from the pages. Heh. Good to know you're actually taking what I'm giving you to heart, Sojiro said, leaning a hand on the bar. The money we make doesn't seem like much considering the effort we put into it. But hey, money is money. If you learn as quickly as you take notes, then you'll be making good coffee in no time. Just remember, I'll have your ass if you serve a bad cup of coffee to customers. Right. I'll keep that in mind, Izuku gave a firm nod in understanding. Good. Now ring. Sojiro pulled out his phone, his brow crinkling as he turned away to answer it. Who could this be? Hello? Izuku raised his head when he saw the barista snap his head up. How did you get this number? Now. Where? Fine. Sojiro hung up the phone with a tired sigh. Sorry, something just came up. We'll continue with the lessons later. Is everything alright? Izuku asked. Nothing for you to be concerned about. But thanks for asking. Sojiro said, giving a small smile. Just wash the dishes for me while I'm gone. Oh, and remember to shut off the gas before closing up shop. Okay. Leave it to me. Izuku quickly picked up their used cups, taking them to the sink. Heh. You turned out to be a damn diligent worker. It's nice to have you around for moments like this, said Sojiro. I appreciate your help. Keep it up. I will. I hope everything goes well, Izuku said, giving a kind smile. He could see Sojiro beginning to trust him more and more, and their relationship deepened yet again. Smash sheriff and confidant. Rank 3. I was wondering when you'd be back. Izuku swallowed a lump in his throat, slowly walking through the front door to Untouchable. IY sat behind the counter with his feet kicked up and the magazine in hand, watching him with a sideways glance. Why yeah. Sorry for taking a while, I had a few things of my own to deal with, Izuku said, pulling on his bag strap as he moved to stand behind the glass next to him. So about before not now. Was IY's immediate answer, tilting his head pointedly toward the customers standing by. Though Izuku did notice that it was a bit quiet for this time of day, even for IY's shop. While Izuku was eager to learn more, he wasn't stupid. Pushing for it now would only make IY less likely to talk. So Izuku gave a nod, putting his bag behind the display case. I'll go check on the inventory. Sounds good. IY nodded, shifting his attention back to the magazine in hand and flipping the pages. Izuku couldn't stop a sigh, walking past the shop owner and heading into the back room. He spent some time going over the list of goods shipped in and reorganizing the shelves. IY hadn't said a word in nearly an hour. Alright, we're good. Come back up, IY said from the front. Izuku sat down, duster in hand, walking to the front and seeing IY set the front door sign to closed. Don't need anybody coming in while we're chatting, not that I've been super busy. What do you mean? Izuku asked, raising a brow. Well, you were off doing what your thing, customers have been drying up. Apparently, someone's been saying my stuff is phony online. And scaring off typical customers. IY sighed, moving to the display case and leaning back on it. Why would someone do that to you? Does it have to do with what we did? It might be related. Pretty sure it's Tsuda posting about my stuff, in fact. IY explained, crossing his arms. He's probably trying to get me desperate. Get me to lose some money so I'd consider whatever offer he's got. After all, once you get a bad rap, it's tough to shake. Izuku's jaw fell a little, his eyes sympathetic before looking away from IY. I know what you mean, huh? What would you know about that? IY raised a brow curiously. Izuku only rubbed his arm in response. Thankfully, IY spoke again. Well, I guess a kid like you wouldn't be doing stuff for a guy like me. If that weren't the case, don't tell me any details. I don't want to know. Izuku felt some relief not having to talk about his record. Okay, but now about what we talked about. Right. I did say I'd explain, IY sighed, grabbing the lollipop stick hanging out of his mouth. So that guy I mentioned, Tsuda, used to be a close friend of mine. We used to work together, and now he's the patriarch of the Hashiba clan. Patriarch? So you were? Izuku's eyes widened as the truth came out. Yup. Me and him were sworn brothers back in my heyday. I broke ties a long time ago. Which ended up being convenient, cause that was right before Yakuza started becoming a rare commodity once the hero boom hit. IY gave a small smirk as he saw Izuku's face. If that info is too much for you to handle, tell me now. I'd rather not waste my breath if you've already decided to leave. Izuku's jaw clenched. Even though IY was a former Yakuza, Izuku wasn't as unnerved as he thought he'd be. He might be a former criminal, but I'm technically one now. I'm not bothered by it. Izuku admitted, meeting IY's gaze with stern eyes. But that still doesn't explain why you would want to spy on your old friend. IY smirked, giving a nod. Heh. You've got skeletons of your own, huh? Well then, let me fill you in. I'm sure you're aware that any Yakuza still out there are in hiding, right? Well, Tsuda and my old clan have been making lots of moves. I may not be involved with my old clan since leaving, but I keep tabs on what they're up to. I need to know if they're gonna try and use me for some dumb plan or not, and to see if they're still surviving. Izuku sensed a bit of hesitance in his last words, his eyes softening. You care about this Tsuda person, huh? TCH. Care might be a strong word for it, IY denied, pulling on the brim of his hat to cover his eyes. But we were still sworn brothers. So I guess I get concerned. Though more about the idea of him involving me in his schemes. I see, but why spy on your friend after your talk? Izuku asked. Like I said, they've been making a lot of moves lately. I wanted to know just how much. As it turns out, they made a really big one without me realizing. IY sighed, pulling the lollipop out of his mouth. Going under the 8 precepts is a big deal, especially with their batshit crazy leader. Izuku's brow knitted. Who are the 8 precepts? Nothing for you to be concerned about. The less you know about them, the better, Iwai huffed, pushing off the glass. But now you know what's going on. I need your help to keep an eye on Tsuda and his people when they try anything. Plus the usual stuff. Now that you know everything, are you still willing to be a part of this? Izuku held his chin in thought, assessing everything that Iwai had told him. It was all rather sketchy, of course, but with the trouble he has faced in the metaverse, Izuku found that this work wasn't as concerning for him as it should have been. And you promise that you're trying not to get involved with them? Yep. That's the main reason I got you working for me, kid. I need whatever intel I can get in case somebody comes knocking. So long as I'm ready, I won't need to get into bed with those guys at all. That life it's a long way behind me. Iwai declared, crossing his arms. So? You in or you out? Izuku was silent for a moment, closing his eyes before giving a firm nod. If that's the truth I'll keep working for you, then. We had a deal, after all. Heh. Good. I'm expecting big things, mumbles. Izuku visibly stumbled at the nickname, having not heard him use it in some time. And as a little bonus, I'll expand a bit of the inventory available on my special menu and give you a bit of a discount. Consider it a thanks for helping me out with that first job. That'd be great. Izuku said, feeling a deeper understanding build between him and Iwai. Smash Hangman Confidant. Rank 3 before the two could continue, the front door bell rang, the two snapping their heads up in alarm. They immediately relaxed when they saw it was Kaoru standing there, poking his head in hesitantly. Hey, Dad, oh, Kaoru, it's you. What did I tell you about coming by here after school? Iwai said, his voice stern as he addressed him. I know, I was just going head home, already. You've got entrance exams to focus on, don't you? Kaoru's eyes fell to the ground meekly. Well, yeah, but I've got a part-time worker now. You don't gotta worry about how I run things, Iwai said, motioning to Izuku, who remained silent. It wasn't his place to butt into this. Kaoru's gaze shifted to Izuku, his eyes widening in surprise. Wait, you're that guy who hey there, Izuku said with a hesitant wave and smile. Yeah, it's him. Forget that, though. You said your thanks before, so head home and get to studying, alright. I'll be back later. Iwai quickly said, causing his son to frown. Okay, I'll see you later, then. Kaoru looked at Izuku and smiled. It was good to see you again. Please take care of my dad. I will, Izuku nodded. With that, Kaoru slowly took his leave. Iwai finally relaxed, releasing a heavy sigh and shaking his head. I'm happy he's worried about me, but he's gotta worry about his own problems, right now, Iwai mumbled, though Izuku could tell it was more of a thought said aloud, rather than directed his way. I'm guessing he doesn't know? Izuku asked. About me being ex-Yakuza? No, he doesn't. And it's staying that way, got it? I don't want him getting involved in any of this. Iwai said, furrowing his brow. Izuku quickly nodded. I understand. I won't say anything. Good. With that, you can head home for the day. Drop by again when you want some work or tools. I'll be sure to text you if I need help with something, too. Thanks for taking the time to meet us, Midoriya. Mishima said, he and Shiho sitting across from Izuku. The three sat inside the comfortable diner in Shibuya, the two having invited him there for a business meeting. Sorry for not meeting you guys sooner. A lot's been happening in the past couple of weeks. Don't sweat it. We know that you guys are doing important work. All while trying to maintain a regular school life, too, Shiho smiled. By the way, Miss Himikin told me you guys even had to meet with someone in person. How did that go? It went well. He gave us all the info we needed, Izuku said, his brow furrowing seriously. For now I'll keep quiet on what, but I think you'll be seeing results from our latest job soon. Man, you guys aren't letting up, huh? Just what I'd expect from the fan. Shiho nudged him gently, her eyes glazing across the restaurant still packed with people. I mean just what I'd expect from you guys. Sorry. It's okay. Just look forward to it, Izuku smiled. So how has the site been going? It's going great. Honestly, it's a lot more work than I thought it'd be, but Shiho has helped lighten the load for me, Mishima explained, sending a smile Shiho's way. It took a little time, but while I'm out of school, I was able to learn everything I needed to manage it just right. She explained, her expression brightening at the thought. In fact, it's nice to have something to do while at home. Especially if it means helping the heroes who saved me. Shiho helps a lot by wading through the requests and managing the forums while I handle the PR stuff. Dividing up the work has really saved me from doing one too many all-nighters working on it, Mishima chuckled. I'm happy to hear that. You guys are being a huge help, said Izuku, leaning forward on his elbows. Of course. We want you guys to be as popular as possible. Mishima grinned in excitement. The more we get your name out there, the more people will believe in you and ask for help. Just leave it to me and Shiho. We'll get you guys the attention you deserve. Still, weeding out trolls on the fan site can be pretty tiring. Some people like going on there just to poke fun at people for supporting the idea. Shiho sighed, rubbing her neck. What's wrong with wanting to believe in a group that helps people that can't be hurt by others? It makes me sick. Her eyes became distant and her gaze fell to the ground. Izuku and Mishima's smiles vanished, the two sparing a silent exchange before looking back at Shiho. It's still bothering her. Izuku looked to the side in thought for a moment before straightening out. He put on a confident smile and dared to reach out and gently touch Shiho's hand. It's okay. People can't say what they want. We're helping people and we'll keep helping people. As we keep going and take down more villains, we'll show them that we're the real deal. Izuku said, his voice firm. Her eyes met his, her expression brightening. You're right. Thanks. Sorry if I. Shiho rubbed her neck, looking around at the two shyly. Don't worry about it. We've just gotta do our part in things and make sure trolls like those don't control the conversation, right? We do our part and they'll do theirs, said Mishima, giving her shoulder a light bump. Shiho gave a reaffirming nod. Yeah right. I'll leave our publicity in both of your hands. Thank you, again, Izuku said, giving them a gentle smile. He was happy to finally have this talk with Mishima and Shiho. It helped him see where she was at after everything that happened. And he trusted that they would do the Phantom Thieves justice online. Smash Moon Confidants. Rank 3. Now that the air was cleared, another thought came to Izuku. By the way, you guys had a couple requests for us to take, right? Oh, yes, let me get them for you, Shiho said, digging into her pocket and fishing her phone out. You can take requests right now. Mishima asked with a bit of awe. Yeah. We shouldn't keep people who need help waiting, after all. We won't be able to do all of them, at least not as quickly. But some requests should be easier than others, Izuku explained for him. You're still helping little guy even when you're dealing with the big problems. It shows how genuine you all are, Shiho remarked, scrolling down on her screen. And the more good press you get from it, the better, Mishima agreed with a chuckle. Okay, so this one's close to home. A student at Shujin named Daisuke Takanashi. He's been taking his bullying too far and hurting a lot of students in his class. Shiho read aloud. Ah, yeah, I've heard about that one. I felt bad for the students being hurt, but this wasn't something I could stop personally. Mishima sighed, looking at Izuku with pleading eyes. Sorry if I jumped the gun, but I said you guys would take care of it on the fan site. Is that okay? It's fine. We'll be sure to handle it. Still, we should try and give our heroes more of a heads up rather than speak on their behalf, Miss Himiken. Shiho said, giving him a somewhat scolding glance. Why yeah, sorry about that. I'll be sure to do that next time. Mishima laughed sheepishly. Anyway, we should get going. I want to get home and check up on the fan site. Same. You guys keep doing your job and we'll keep doing ours, Shiho said with a smile, standing from her seat and letting herself and Mishima out of the booth. Okay. I'll let you know when we've handled things with Takanashi. We're looking forward to it. Mishima gave a thumbs up, he and Shiho turning to take their leave. Izuku watched them, feeling a boost to his spirits. Seeing Shiho walk around, smiling and active after everything she had been through, made all of their hard work up to this point worth it. And we're just getting started. Chapter 29. Yusuke pushed the door open to Madaram's room, a platter of tea and vegetables in his other arm. He lingered there for a moment, the room only lit by the hallway light. Peering inside, he saw his master lying in bed, curled up under a blanket. He could see him shiver under the covers, whispering incoherent babble. Yusuke hated this. Living under the same roof as Madaram. Watching over the man who allowed his mother to die and ruin the lives of others for personal gain. Only a few more days, he hoped, before Madaram would finally confess. Yusuke cleared his throat. Sensei. I've brought you tea and something to eat. I don't want it. Yusuke let out a sigh, trudging over to the nightstand by Madaram's bed. You'll waste away if you don't eat, Sensei. Come, get up. You're not allowed to starve until you've admitted to your crimes. Madaram retreated further into the blankets. Yusuke fought the urge to scowl at the shell of a man before him. He maintained his plastic smile and gently gripped Madaram's shoulder. Come now, Sensei. You need to eat something. Yusuke tugged him forward. Madaram resisted for a moment, but sad enough, the covers still wrapped tightly around his shuddering form. Yusuke pulled the entire nightstand over so that his food and beverage were sitting directly in front of him. I will not leave until you've taken at least a bite and a sip from your meal, Sensei. Please. He lorded over Madaram, waiting expectantly for him to begin. It took several moments for his former teacher to finally move. If it will make you happy. Yusuke raised a brow. He wouldn't let this soften his heart. Yes. Now please, eat. Madaram gingerly reached for the plate in front of him, picking up his chopsticks and putting a small chunk of steamed lettuce in his mouth. He then reached for the tea, his hands trembling as he slowly brought it to his lips. Good. I'll be back later to take your dishes away. Make sure you finish it all. Yusuke said, giving a curt nod before turning around to leave. Yusuke, his lips turning into a thin line before he turned back to Madaram. Yes. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Madaram's bottom lip tucked in as he held back his weeping. Yusuke's nails dug into his palm as he battled the urge to pity the man he once called father. Whatever internal conflict raged within Madaram was long overdue. Still, seeing him in such a pathetic state couldn't help but appeal to Yusuke's better nature. But that pity was soon erased when he thought of the Sayuri. The real Sayuri. Before it was defiled by Madaram. Make sure that you finish your food, sensei. With that, Yusuke turned away and shut the door behind him. Izuku wasn't normally welcomed by Justine into the Velvet Room. More often than not, Carolyn was there to usher him in with a swift kick to the rear. But this time, her sister was the one waiting by the entrance. It was a nice change of pace from the physical abuse he was subject to on a regular basis. She did stop him with a warning before letting him inside. Be quiet as you enter, inmate. Carolyn is practicing something important for your arrival. He wasn't sure what that meant but decided against doing differently. After all, he wouldn't be surprised if Carolyn snapped at him for interrupting her duties. So, Izuku was silent as he woke up in his striped jumpsuit, standing from his bench without a word as he peered through the bars. Okay, the next time I see him, I'll say stupid inmate. You think you're cool. Or something. He heard Carolyn's voice, blinking as he easily guessed she was referring to one of their talks. What is she practicing? Izuku puckered his lips, leaning forward but making sure not to touch the bars. Just off to his left, he could see the dual bun-haired warden facing the other way, tapping her electric baton on her shoulder. No, something meaner. I want him to know who's in charge. Something like don't get cocky over little things. You've got a long way to go. Yeah, is she practicing being mean to me? His brow twitched at the implications. I don't even think Kaken tries to come up with insults for me, but maybe that's too mean. I mean, we are supposed to praise him for progress. Izuku's jaw fell when he heard the slightest bit of vulnerability in her voice. But I don't want the inmate to think I'm going soft on him. But still, maybe hold back a bit more. Her eye drifted to the floor while her toe tapped the ground. So does she just act tough? Or, Carolyn? Izuku and Carolyn jumped, their heads snapping around to look at Justine. The stoic twin had a rare smirk on her face. Her molten gold eye hid no amount of amusement. Why you scared me? Carolyn sputtered. For a second, I thought the inmate had come. Her voice trailed off, her pupil dilating as she saw Izuku behind the bars. I was only informing you that the inmate had come in. Justine said as casually as possible. Hi, Izuku uttered without thinking, his lips pursed as he struggled to look casual in any sort of way. Carolyn stared back silently for a moment, her face slowly beginning to turn a bright shade of red before raising her baton and pointing at him with it. How long have you been there? And not long. Izuku answered, raising his hands in surrender. How long is not long? I don't know. What did you see? Nothing. I saw nothing. You better not be lying, inmate. I am. Once again, their heads snapped over to Justine, who wore a small, smug grin of satisfaction. I believe the inmate came here with a purpose, Carolyn. Perhaps it would be better for us to move on. Her sister's one good eyelid twitched, her face still fuming from embarrassment. She turned her gaze back to Izuku and shoved her finger in his face. You better be careful, inmate. Izuku swallowed a lump in his throat. He watched them return to their usual positions outside his cell. Justine looked as pleased as ever, while Carolyn refused to look him in the eye. Her hands were busy bending her baton until it creaked and groaned in her grasp. How can we help you today, inmate? Carolyn ground out, her teeth knit tightly together. I could always come back later. She slammed the bars hard enough to rattle them. You're not going anywhere until you do something, inmate. Okay. He yelped, raising his arms to shield his face in fear of her wrath. I imagine this is about the task that we gave you? Justine asked, seemingly back on task. We are aware that you finished making the persona, but you were quick to leave before we could discuss its completion. Izuku quickly remembered that had, indeed, been the reason he came to the Velvet Room. Yes. I just wanted to make it official. HMPH. It was about time, Carolyn huffed, crossing her arms over her chest before looking away. Yes. Still, it is commendable that you were able to think of your task while also focusing on your target, said Justine. Your commitment to your rehabilitation is evident. She looked at Carolyn expectantly, the more boisterous of the two trying to keep from meeting her eye. As the silence continued, she finally let out a groan before looking back at Izuku. I guess it shows that you're willing to do some work. There, happy, thank you. You completed the task with surprising ease. Though your past diligence would show you're quite adept when it comes to combining personas when you wish to. Justine continued, ignoring her sister. Yeah. I guess you're not a complete waste of our time, Carolyn mumbled, looking to the side again. Now hurry up and give him the next task on the list, Justine, of course, her sister replied, flipping the pages back on her clipboard. I have your next task listed here. So that you know, these tasks will increase in difficulty. Are you prepared to fulfill them? I'll do my best. Izuku answered, brushing aside his awkwardness for a moment to speak with confidence. If it'll help me grow, I'll do it. How admirable. Justine gave him a gentle smile in return. Carolyn sighed, straightening back out to look at Izuku. Despite Justine's little prank, he continued to feel thankful for their help. Things might have been a bit rocky, but the twins were nonetheless continuing to build up their relationship as well as he was. Smash Strength Confidant. Rank 2, we would once again like to bestow a new privilege upon you. But it is extremely powerful and wish for you to complete a task for us before doing so. Justine said. Yeah. Don't think we're gonna make this easy for you, inmate. Carolyn snickered. He pumped his fist in front of him. Right, of course. I'll complete it soon. Don't try and act cool, inmate. Izuku stared at her for a moment before his eyes trailed to the side. Alright, Carolyn seemed to catch on, her cheeks dusting red before pointing her baton forward. If that's all you had to do, then get out already. Oh okay. Oh, before you go. Bring us a matador with Mugiwara when you get the chance. Alright. Izuku was hurled back to reality, blinking as he found himself standing in Memento's entrance with the others close by. So you really do just begin to stand off alone and zone out when you enter that other world, Makoto muttered, holding her chin in thought. Ryuji laughed. We told you. It's pretty funny but kinda weird, right? Anne giggled. I'm glad he explained it. I kept thinking he fell asleep in place or something. I thought he was having a moment of clarity before the heists. Though, I guess in a way, he was. Morgana said, tilting his head to the side. Your face takes on this enchanting idleness when you go into that other world. Next time you go into this velvet room, please inform me first. I wish to draw you in that state, Yusuke said, framing Izuku between the imaginary lens of his fingers. Gee guys, Izuku laughed awkwardly while tugging at the collar of his jacket. We should head for the target now. Good point. Alright, everyone. I'll go transform. Said Morgana, skipping ahead of the others. Everyone followed suit, with Izuku trailing behind. I wasn't really expecting that kind of visit, but at least I'm making progress. Izuku stepped forward before coming to an abrupt halt again. Wait, I have a matador with Mugiwara. He felt sweat trail down his face. But maybe I should wait a bit before going back. Yeah, it's not my fault. They didn't stand up for themselves. Izuku hopped over a ball of ice hurled his way. The day's mission was to subdue the shadow of Daisuke Takanashi. Apparently, Takanashi was a bully at their school who forced kids to fork over money by threatening to beat them senseless. A rather typical bully, but one that Izuku and the others refused to let stand. They had come together as a team, expecting the worst. Instead, his shadow took the shape of a simple Jack Frost. A strong shadow. Perhaps in the first palace, at least. But the team was more than equipped to deal with a single, slightly stronger Jack Frost. Using force to keep people from complaining ain't given them much of a choice. Ryuji huffed. Yeah. And now you're about to know how it feels. Dance, Carmen. Anne shouted. Her persona whipped the air to unleash a barrage of fireballs upon the shadow. Graagh. It cried, the blaze causing serious damage. It didn't have the effect it would have on a normal Jack Frost, but it was certainly strong enough to stagger it. I'll take it from here. Ryuji called out, running ahead of the group before getting down in a sprinter's position. Electricity crackled around his legs, but sparks fizzled around his damaged knee. Wait, Skull. What are you doing? Izuku asked. This guy's a piece of cake, don't sweat it. Ryuji flashed a wild grin and tightly gripped his new weapon, a bat covered in nails and barbed wire, with his right hand. I've been wanting to try out this move I thought of anyway, don't do something stupid, Skull. Anne called out in worry, moving to his side to try and stop him. But Ryuji took off, leaving the ground crackling with lightning in his wake. The distance between him and the shadow vanished in an instant. The next thing anyone heard was the crack of the bat across the shadow. That's when the burning pain in Ryuji's knee became too much to bear, and he tumbled along the ground until he crashed into the closest wall. Skull. Anne was the first to move, running past the shadow that laid there, completely defeated. She rushed to his side, kneeling next to him. I told you not to do something stupid. What the hell was that? They just trying out a super move like a real hero. Ryuji grinned despite his scuffs, slowly sitting up and hugging his knee. Looks like this knee ain't quite ready for that yet. No kidding. Idiot. Anne sighed, raising her hand and casting a D on him. The pain and bruising soon vanished as the light washed over him. Next time, I'll let you limp back. Come on, don't be like that. But thanks for healing me up. Is Skull okay? Izuku asked, running over while Makoto, Morgana and Yusuke had their guns trained on the now human-shaped shadow of Takanashi. I'm cool, dude. Thanks to Panther, Ryuji answered, pushing up to his feet. Let's go make this guy change. Izuku watched him carefully for a moment before nodding his head, walking back with the three and surrounding Shadow Takanashi. See, come on. You can't blame me for all of this. I was just doing what I was told. Takanashi whined with wide, terrified eyes. Why, you've gotta help me. I was gonna get hurt if I didn't take people's money. Someone else is coercing you, too? Makoto asked. She and the others lowered their guns now that it was powerless. Why, yes. I didn't want to get hurt anymore. I can't take it, I can't. Takanashi cried, hunching over and hugging his right arm. So there's an even bigger bully making him do the dirty work, huh? Anne said, looking at the others in thought. Hey. Weren't you the one who just said that it's everyone else's fault for not standing up for themselves? Ryuji barked, causing the shadow to wince. I mean, it's fine. Don't worry. Izuku said, walking up to the shadow. If you're being harassed too, we'll help you. But you have to make it up with those you've hurt, too. Why, you mean it? Oh, thank you. Thank you. Takanashi said, suddenly prostrating himself before them. A real fickle guy we've got here, huh? Morgana said, tilting his head to the side in minor disbelief. Please help me, you promised, right? Takanashi's shadow said as it faded into light. Well, don't forget your side of things too. Ryuji reminded him, watching as the shadow disappeared completely. The treasure appeared before them. Izuku swiped it out of the air, revealing a bog-standard protein bar. What a treasure that turned out to be, said Makoto while leaning over his shoulder to look at it. I was certainly expecting a more difficult foe when you told me we would be dealing with a person shadow, Yusuke suddenly said, crossing his arms and leaning to one side. He took a bit of damage, but the six of us handled it rather easily. And I got to pull out my sick move to finish him off. Ryuji pumped his fist, grinning in triumph. That grin soon fell when Anne slapped him on the back of the head. Hey. That was reckless. Don't do something like that again. Anne snapped, placing her hands on her hips. You said yourself that your knee can't take it. Ryuji waved her off. Come on, I wouldn't use it on some big guy. He was cake. Makoto crossed her arms. It was still a dangerous move, Skull. Had you missed or had he reacted somehow, you might have been in huge trouble. Honestly, I thought the attack was good, said Izuku, surprising the others until he continued, but you really have to warn us first when you do something like that. That way we're prepared to help if you need us to. Ryuji chewed on the inside of his cheek, finding it difficult to argue with Izuku. You might have a hard head, but we don't want to have to worry about you getting caught just because you wanted to look cool, Skull, Morgana huffed. Alright, I get it. I get it, sorry, Ryuji breathed out, scratching the top of his head. Izuku gave a small smile, going forward and putting a hand on his shoulder. Don't be discouraged. Even though I would have liked a warning, you did deal the final hit. And your move was really cool, if reckless with your knee like that. Izuku said, trying to raise his spirits. In fact, it reminded me of something I wanted to talk to everyone about, anyway. Did we do something wrong? Yusuke asked, holding his left elbow in his right hand. No, nothing like that. But ever since we took down the palace, I've been wondering about how we could keep improving before we get our next target. Then I remembered we have mementos to work with, Izuku explained, turning to face the rest of the team. We can tackle the shadows roaming here and take down smaller targets. It really is a perfect place for us to strengthen as a team. What's that have to do with Skull's blockhead move, though? Morgana asked, causing the faux blonde to flinch. Well, I think that on top of improving our overall fighting ability, we could also work on our teamwork. Izuku explained, crossing his arms over his chest. If we combine our personas and some of our quirks, though mostly Skull and Queen's, we can make for group attacks in pairs or more. I see. Coordinated attacks that utilize our skills to the fullest, said Yusuke. A small smirk played on his lips. What an interesting idea. Aw, dude. That's totally like what heroes do. They always got some sort of special move. Ryuji grinned like an idiot. Some people are really compatible together as a combo, so I think it makes a lot of sense. Not bad, hero, Morgana smiled at their leader. He turned to Anne, puffing his chest out. I can't wait to see what kind of combo we make together, Panther. Of course that's your first thought, Ryuji rolled his eyes. What did you say to me? Alright. Enough, Makoto stepped between them. But I agree. Spending time in mementos training to improve our teamwork and quirks is a good idea. I haven't been able to use mine since my first visit to the palace, so this is a great opportunity. I think that if I keep working on mine, maybe my knee will start to get used to it, Ryuji said, wiggling his hurt leg around a bit. I'm starting to run normally just fine, but using my quirk still needs work. Skull, you can't just muscle through your quirk's damage like that. You could make it worse instead of making it better. Anne shook her head. We need you in one piece, quirk or no quirk. I know, it's just Ryuji sighed, looking down at his leg with a somber look. I feel like I could be so damn useful if this thing worked right, you know. The damage done to it. Was it truly that terrible? Yusuke asked curiously. It didn't heal right after it happened. Now it's just busted for good, I think. Ryuji sighed, scratching the top of his head. Izuku felt a frown cross his lips, sharing a small look with Anne. The twin-tailed blonde looked just as sympathetic, but neither knew what to say. Ryuji looked up at the others, seeing their quiet expressions before putting on a grin. Ah, it ain't nothing. I still got my persona and all, right? Not like our leader has a quirk, anyway, he said, slapping Izuku on the shoulder before swinging his arm in a circle. Well, I'm up to keep going around. How about you guys? Might as well get a good workout in with our personas, right? Izuku smiled as Ryuji tried to bring their spirits back up, giving a nod of agreement before looking around at the team. Come on. We can fight a few more shadows, right? We can discuss team strategies while we drive. Sounds good to me. Let's roll. Morgana said, skipping ahead of the others before transforming into a van. I'm still getting used to that. Makoto giggled sheepishly, jogging up to the front to drive. Izuku let the others move ahead of him, whipping out a notebook as he wrote down everything he knew about Ryuji's quirk. I wish there was something we could do for him. Medical braces would just tear from the force of his quirk, and dia spells don't do anything either. If only we had some hero-grade material, Izuku thought, touching the tip of his chin with his pencil. That's when it dawned on him. Oh. That's right. Hatsume-san. What are you doing, hero? Come on. The cat bus called out, causing him to jump. Sorry. Coming. To think I was able to get you back for another test so soon. I'm so excited. Yeah, me too. Izuku put on a weak smile as he faced the bubbly inventor. He made sure to contact Mei soon after he left Mementos. To his delight and dread, Mei was able to secure the space for his visit the very next day. He assumed that meant she worked well into the night, as it was close to 8 when he had texted. Alright. I'm going to figure out which baby I would like to test out today. She gave him a thumbs up before rushing off to her workbench. It was littered with gadgets and gizmos that she sifted through like a pile of dirty laundry. But even that paled in comparison to the ever-growing mountain of scraps and broken prototypes in the corner. Hatsume-san, before we get to that, Izuku started, causing her to pause in her search to look back at him. Can we discuss what I want first? Ah, right. Of course. Quid pro quo. Mei nodded fervently, turning back to her pile and continuing her search. Tell me what you want while I look for a baby. Okay then, Izuku sighed, realizing he might not be able to delay her test as long as he would have liked. I was wondering if you can make something like a knee brace. A knee brace? You have a problem with your legs? She asked, tossing some gadget overhead. Izuku had to sidestep it at the last second, wincing as it hit the ground with a hard clank. It's not for me. It's for a friend. Mei froze, her head whipping around to look at Izuku again. A friend? Are you trying to sell my babies? Izuku felt as though he was staring down the barrel of a sniper rifle. And no. Not at all. My friend Jay just has a really bad knee, and it hurts how his quirk works. Is that right? Mei instantly closed a gap between them, their faces nearly touched as she examined every bead of sweat that rolled down his face. Then tell me, what's their name? Ryuji Sakamoto. What year are they in? Second year. What school? Shujin Academy. Mei blinked for a moment and took a step back. That's not a hero school. At least not one I've heard of. Why yeah, he goes to a different school than me. Izuku breathed out in relief, glad that she gave him space again. It's for general academics. If that's the case, then why doesn't he just get a medical brace? The problem with his knee relates to his quirk. He can run regularly now, but his quirk used to let him run at super speed. After an incident, he can't use it without hurting himself. Her eyes narrowed again, but this time there was a glimmer of curiosity instead of malice. If he doesn't go to a hero school, why does he want to fix it? If his knee functions fine without using it, there should be no problem. Yeah, but his quirk is still a part of him, Izuku explained, his lips forming into a frown. Despite its more practical use when facing shadows, Izuku had thought past that. About how Ryuji felt. He saw him try to use his quirk even outside of the metaverse, just to test if he could. Ever since the incident, his knee and quirk haven't been the same. And I can tell it bothers him. I want to help him, and I think you're the only one who can. Mei watched Izuku for a long moment, her expression neutral and intent as she stared at the green-haired teen. Izuku might have lost hope, but she soon placated that feeling. Alright. I'll do it. Izuku's face lit up, a smile spreading across his face. Really? Yup. I'll need his measurements before I can start, but you're going to have to prove you mean it. May suddenly turned back to her workbench, digging through her tools. Ah, here it is. She pulled out what looked like a pair of gloves, causing Izuku to raise a brow in wonder. She walked back over to Izuku, holding them out to the green-haired teen. Here. Put these on. Okay, Izuku slipped them on, both gloves surprisingly comfortable. Across the palm and the fingertips were metallic pads of some sort, and on the back of it, a dial with an arrow pointed at a bar labeled weak to strong. I proudly present to you one of my older babies, the magnet mitts. May said, grinning ear to ear as she took his hands, completely ignoring the heat rising on Izuku's face from the close contact. I made these babies a while ago, but never got a proper test done with them. They're used to scale any building with metallic infrastructure. They'll prove invaluable during rescue operations. Wow, that's amazing. Sure. If you have good upper body strength. May said, causing Izuku to blink. The shoes and knee pads that came with them blew up after a mishap, so I tossed those aside to look at later. But since you're so eager to give a baby to someone else, I figured that you can help me test these before making their siblings. Izuku stared at May, looking at the gloves for a moment before seeing the problem. Okay, so what do I need to do? I want you to climb the wall of the garage and reach the very center of the ceiling. That way, I can fine-tune the strength of the electromagnets so they won't blow up in someone's hands. May pointed at the metal panel wall before pointing to the light implemented in the ceiling. Do that, and I'll make your friend's knee brace. Izuku felt his jaw slack, suddenly realizing just how difficult his new test was going to be. This is going to be more than just taking a hit like the last ones. He looked at the walls and the ceiling, the metal-plated walls at least a few meters in height, with the ceiling sharing a similar diameter. Feel free to start when you're ready, adjust the dials accordingly if you need to. Those are a big part of testing for me, as well. May said, pulling out a notepad and a pen. Izuku felt sweat trail down his face, looking up at the wall and swallowing his spit. Taking a breath, Izuku shook the tension out of his arms and stretched them out as best he could. Looking down at the gloves, he flipped a small switch on the back next to the dial, hearing the gloves hum to life. He then raised his arms to put them on the wall. Until he felt the magnets pull him forward. His hands were glued to the wall before he gotten within arm's reach of it. The magnets strong. They sure are. What setting are they on? May asked while jotting something down on paper. It's at the center on both. I see. Can you move your hands? Izuku tried to pull himself away, but it was like trying to peel something out of dried cement. He'd lose his hands before he would make the magnets budge. No, not at all. Well, that's in need of obvious calibration. Her eyes darted between him and the page she was writing on. Pull your hand out of the glove and set it to low. See how strong the polarity is after that. Izuku did just that, huffing as he struggled to pull his right hand. Finally tugging it free, he moved the dial on both hands to low. He put his hand back in the glove, thankful to find that he could lift his hands off the wall again. He had to slowly peel each one off, but that just meant he was firmly secured to the wall. Okay. That seems like a good setting for climbing. Great. Now get climbing. May said, grinning at him with sparkling eyes. Don't worry. If you fall, you'll hit the padded floor. Izuku pursed his lips, knowing full well by now that the padded floor only absorbs so much impact. With a deep sigh, he faced the wall again. This is for Ryuji-senpai. I can do this. Izuku rolled his shoulders and neck before placing the gloves against the wall. With a hard tug, he grit his teeth and raised his left arm as high as he could. Once it was secure, he pulled his right arm up to meet his left and slowly started pulling himself up. His arms and shoulders were already starting to burn by the time he made it halfway off the floor. Using these gloves felt less like rock climbing and more like being stuck to a wall by 2 sheets of flypaper. But he refused to give up. He focused on peeling his arms off the wall one by one. One hand, then the next hand. Then the next hand. Then lost his balance. Izuku's left arm got into a weird position trying to crane him up and he hissed as all of his weight was put on his other arm. He wobbled in the air trying to get his left arm back on the wall, but his frantic movements ripped the other glove off the wally. He fell on his rear with a hard thud, panting and sweating. Luckily, he hadn't gotten too high, so the padded floor at least helped him here. Damn, that really is harder than it looks, that's why I had a pair of boots and knee pads to go with it. May explained with a shrug. If you really want to get something for this friend, then you have to help me finish testing this baby. Izuku bit his bottom lip, seeing little room for him to complain on the matter. He was asking for something a bit more outside of their deal. If this is what May wanted, he was willing to work for it. He leapt to his feet. Okay. I'm going to try again. I can do this. I don't know if I can do this. It had been an hour since he started working on May's test. Izuku's arms were beyond sore. He'd slipped off the wall more times than he'd care to say. After the half-hour mark, Izuku had finally muscled his way to the ceiling. He wanted to celebrate, but he soon found that clinging to the ceiling while moving was a task of its own. He'd be left hanging as soon as he pulled one hand off the ceiling, and he'd fall not long afterward. Trying to up the magnetic force in the gloves just made it even harder to find his balance. He could feel his back bruising from all the times he fell, and the padding never seemed to make things better. "Well, I think that's about enough," said May. She'd been lost in her own little world during his struggle, focused on the data she gathered from watching him squirm and fall over and over. "We'll have to call it a night. It's getting late." But okay, his head thudding against the mat as he decided to let it go. "I'll try and finish it next time." "Oh, no, you don't need to do that." May waved him off. "I've gathered all the data I needed. Aside from recalibrating the dial, they still work as good as ever. The next time you come, bring your friend." Izuku's eyes lit up, forcing himself to a sitting position. "Really, yup. I'd say you proved your commitment enough for one day," May said, giving him a thumbs up. "Plus I got what I needed, so fair's fair." He wobbled to his feet with a tired smile on his face. "Thank you, Hatsum-san," he bowed in gratitude before almost falling over in place. "Careful, now. I need you in top shape for the next baby I need you to test," May said, helping him to his feet. "But to build your friend the proper baby, he needs to come with you next time. I won't know what to make him otherwise." He nodded fervently. "Oh, of course, I'll let him know." "Good. Thanks for the data as always, Midoriya," May said, grabbing the magnet mitts off the ground and taking them over to her table. Izuku breathed a sigh of relief as she spared him from further pain. It showed a bit more understanding on her part, and Izuku felt he understood her a bit more as well. Smash fortune. Rank 3. You're back. Perfect timing, I've got another clinical trial I'd like to run. Izuku stared at Takemi in mild exasperation. "Takemi-sensei, I just came by for some medicine today." I see. "Well, we can get to that after a clinical trial," Takemi said, smirking as she turned away from Izuku. He opened his mouth to protest, only for her to head for the door on her side of the office. "We'll speak further in the examination room." But Takemi closed the door behind her, causing Izuku to slump his shoulders in disappointment. "Looks like you have it pretty rough today," said Morgana as he popped his head out of the bag. "Want me to come with you this time?" "No, it's alright. Hopefully she doesn't give me something too potent today." Izuku sighed, setting the bag down for Morgana. "Thanks for asking, though." "Of course. I'm always ready to help out when you need it, leader." Morgana puffed his chest out after hopping out of the bag. "But it'll be hard to do that outside." "It's okay. I'll see you soon," Izuku said, picking the bag back up before entering the next room over. "You took your time. I thought you might have left instead." Takemi chuckled, crossing her legs before turning in her chair toward him. "So, what's bothering you?" "Nothing severe today. Just some muscle pain and a few bruises after a really hard physical test in PE." Yesterday he winced as he laid his bag down next to the examination table. The soreness from May's latest test had diminished during the ride back, but he still felt tight and tender all over when he woke up that morning. His insistence on going at it without any break certainly didn't help. "I see. Sounds like usual muscle tearing after a workout." Takemi folded one leg over the other and leaned forward on her knee. "Take your shirt off for me." Izuku's eyes became owlish, staring at the doctor with shrunken pupils. "Huh? Come on. I'm giving you a physical examination." She sounded professional, but her face gave away her obvious amusement. "I just want to make sure there isn't anything else wrong, so I can prescribe the right medicine before we move on to the clinical trial." Izuku felt his face heat up in embarrassment. Perhaps more than he should. After all, she was an older woman, so it shouldn't have been a problem, right? Of course, he knew her well enough by now to know she'd tease him whether he did it or not. He slowly peeled his blazer and his school shirt. He was already imagining the jokes Takemi would be making at his expense when he met her eyes again. I'm ready. To his surprise, the doctor was staring at him like he'd grown a second head. Izuku's eyes darted side to side, waiting for her to say something as blood continued to rush to his face. "Takemi-sensei." Her surprise morphed into her usual sly amusement. "I knew you said you worked out, but I didn't expect you to hide all of this under your clothes." "Thanks." Izuku laughed quietly, scratching the back of his head as he looked away from the doctor. I've been exercising for a while now." She laughed as she got up to walk up to him. "Come on, be a little proud of yourself. Most guys your age would kill for a body like this. You'd have the pick of the litter if you actually knew how to talk to women." "Takemi-sensei," Izuku whined, wrapping his arms tighter to his body. "Oh, ALRIGHT. Don't go back into your shell on me now." She placed one hand on her hip. "Come on, move your arms and I'll begin my examination." Izuku let out a hesitant sigh before following her instruction. "Allow the doctor to get closer." He felt nervous at first as Takemi began to put a hand on his biceps, but lost that nervousness when he saw her eyes. Takemi's gaze quickly shifted from amused to critical, looking over his body with the utmost care. She touched his muscles were most tender and listened to his breathing for abnormalities, letting out a hum as she finished. Izuku saw the professional doctor in Takemi come out. Despite her typical demeanor and her modest location, Takemi worked as strictly, if not more so, than most other doctors Izuku had met. Alright. Aside from the bruising on your back and arms, it's nothing a good night's sleep won't fix. She sat back down in her chair. You said you got these bruises in PE? Why yeah. I slipped during the rope climb. Is that so? You look the part of an athlete, at least. Go ahead and put your shirt back on. He didn't need to be asked twice, snatching his shirt up and pulling it on. As he did so, he heard the phone ring. Hello, Takemi Medical Clinic of Internal Medicine. How can I help you? She answered it while he slipped his blazer on. An emergency, huh? But we're not a designated hospital. Izuku saw her expression darken. Besides, the lead physician here is Takemi. She blinked, the tone on the other end going dead. How rude. Hanging up on a lady like that, she huffed, slamming the phone back on the receiver. Is everything okay? Izuku asked. Yeah, nothing for me to worry about, at least. A paramedic just called the wrong number. She shrugged and leaned back in her seat. He was looking for an alternate line, since all the big hospitals seemed to be full up. Must be new though if he called me by accident, he seemed to at least know my name, though. Izuku's lips pressed into a line, but found the courage to ask. Did this have something to do with what happened before? Takemi's gaze fell to the ground, scratching the back of her head. Yeah. I've been blacklisted in medical community. They call me the plague due to a grave medical error I made. Right. That cop mentioned that before. Izuku thought. What happened? She spared him a small glance, as if to assess whether to tell him or not. But after a moment, she gave in. This goes back to my old job. I used to work at a university hospital in the city. I was never actually convicted of anything, but I'm still considered a pariah in the medical community. She locked eyes with him, putting on a half-amused smile. So, does that scare you? Participating in medical trials run by a doctor like that? Izuku felt a pang in his chest as she finished. One mistake, however grave, ruined her career. Just like one mistake shifted the course of his life. He didn't know the details behind her issues, but he felt a deeper connection between him and the disgraced doctor. In the end, he let out a sheepish laugh, scratching the back of his head as a thought came to him. I mean, you already scared me before finding that out. I don't think knowing that changes anything, Takemi-sensei. The doctor's brow rose a bit, but she flashed a small smile before letting out a soft chuckle. You're such a strange kid though, for someone so awkward, you know what to say sometimes. Izuku shared in her laughter. I've been getting that a lot lately. As strange as this arrangement was, Izuku felt that he was beginning to connect with her on a deeper level. Smash Death Confidant. Rank 3 alright, well, that aside being ostracized does have its own benefits. I'm allowed to pursue my own research and development now that most others will leave me to do as I please. She turned back to her laptop to punch some more information in. I'll give you some pain medication and vitamin K cream to reduce your soreness and reduce the severity of your bruises. And I'll add a bit more to the catalog of things you can purchase. Just for you, my little guinea pig. Izuku beamed and was about to thank her until he remembered why she brought him here. That's right. You still YUP. Takemi popped the P, turning her chair back to him with a beaker with a mysterious yellow liquid sloshing around inside. Now come on, take a sip. You'll get your medicine once we're done. Izuku's shoulders slumped in resignation. He clasped both hands around the beaker and opened wide. Chapter 30 Yusuke. Madram's going to confess today. I heard him call for an emergency conference over the phone. Ryuji. For real, we gotta meet up then. Maybe we can watch it together. Makoto. That might be a bit suspicious, but I'm sure it's easy enough for us to blend in if anyone asks. Anne. This is a pretty big deal, I want to meet up too. Izuku. Okay, let's meet up at the hideout. It's a Sunday, so it's easy enough to play off as friends hanging out. Izuku navigated the sea of people flooding the Shibuya walkway, hoping to reach the others before the news conference would begin. It wasn't that important for them to all be there, but he thought it was something they should see as a team. After all, there would be a few things to discuss when it was finally over. This just in, we will be bringing you footage from an emergency press conference held by world-renowned artist Ichirisai Madaram just moments ago. Izuku's neck snapped upward, the crowd ground to a halt as the normally quiet broadcast on Shibuya's largest screen echoed throughout the street. Madaram's image appeared on the screen, the old fraud was sitting in front of a desk covered in microphones. A deep frown rested on his lips, his eyes filled to the brim with tears. What's up with that old geezer? Is he crying? Chatter like this broke across the crowd, people making their thoughts not so private. Izuku was silent as a statue, though, watching Madaram intently. I have committed crimes that are unbecoming of an artist, he began, his voice cracking. Plainly put, plagiarized work. Cameras flashed constantly until he hunched over the table in front of him. I tainted this country's art world, and even Sayuri. Madaram continued to break down with each word, tears streaming down his face as he crumbled onto the table. How could I possibly apologize to everyone for everything I've done? The camera's flashes came like a storm and only ceased when the broadcast was switched over to the newscaster. That was the urgent apology press conference that occurred only moments ago. After reporting to the association, Madaram has agreed to the police's request that he turn himself in. On top of charges of abuse to his pupils, Madaram is under suspicion of claiming his work as his own. Some doubt that his maiden work, Sayuri, was stolen and rather was used for fraud. That's so crazy, I just watched him talk on a morning show the other day. That old man's done for. After the conference, Madaram was taken to a hospital by the police for interrogation due to his age. However, initial psychiatric evaluations have deemed Madaram mentally sound and likely responsible for his actions. They don't need to take it easy on that old geezer. He gets what he deserves. Izuku felt a weight leave his shoulders as the people around him continued to chatter among themselves. It's done. We can move forward again. Also, a group calling themselves the Phantom Thieves planted a dubious note at Madaram's exhibit some days ago. Izuku's head snapped back up to the prompter, almost shocked to hear their names being spread across all of Shibuya and by extension, the rest of Japan. The police will continue to investigate their relation to the case, but no suspects have been identified. Madaram will be further tested for any influence caused by possible mind-altering quirks. Phantom Thieves. Do they have something to do with why he confessed? I think I heard about them online before. I just thought it was a kid with a crazy quirk, but maybe it's bigger than that. What kind of quirk makes somebody confess to a crime? Not to mention in a sorry state like that. They supposedly steal people's hearts, but obviously that's just a figure of speech. Izuku felt a smile slowly spread across his face. The Phantom Thieves were no longer something the people could simply brush off as small time. Their names were spreading like wildfire right before his eyes. The more that people see us, the more people who need the help can get it. The Phantom Thieves, huh? Helping people is great, but I don't like them. Izuku pulled his eyes away from the crowd towards the source of the voice. A young woman with striking red hair tied up in a ponytail and matching eyes stood to his left, her eyes glued to the screen like everyone else. She wore a polka-dotted blue blouse with a white skirt and slippers. We already have heroes around. This isn't making anything better. People don't need someone else to rely on top of them. She continued, making him wonder if she was actually speaking to him. Her eyes soon left the screen, trailing to Izuku and seemingly taking notice to him. She gave a kind smile and giggled sheepishly. Sorry, did I say that out loud? I guess I was just saying what was on my mind without thinking. Izuku opened his mouth to reply, the words stuck in his throat as he thought about her own. In the end, he could only muster up a short response. No, it's fine, the girl nodded before looking at a phone in her hand. Oh, I lingered longer than I meant to. I'm going to be late to register, she muttered, stuffing it away before jogging past Izuku. Nice to meet you. She said curtly as she left. Yeah, Izuku mumbled, giving a small wave as he watched her run to the station entrance. His lips tightened into a frown, her words echoing in his mind. Why would she think that? Of course we're making things better, right? The nerve of that girl, I swear. Izuku yelped as Morgana popped out of his bag. There's no way what we're doing isn't making anything better. Look at how many people we've helped so far. He leaned on Izuku's shoulder. I can't believe that even after that, we still have doubters. Well, it's natural, no matter what it is, Izuku shook his head. There will always be people who disagree. Even heroes face that kind of criticism. Still. It rubs me the wrong way that people think we're not real heroes just because we're not official. The cat said, absently pushing a paw against Izuku's cheek. We'll show her. Her and everyone else still doubting what we're capable of. Izuku stared at Morgana for a moment before letting a grin rest on his features. Yeah. We've still got a ways to go, but we'll change her mind and everyone else's. You took your time, dude. What kept you? Ryuji asked, he along with the others waiting in the usual spot of the subway path. Sorry. I got caught up watching the conference in the streets, Izuku said, jogging up to them and smiling. But it looks like everything went perfectly. Ryuji grinned. No kiddin'. It was just like with Kamoshida. And they mentioned the Phantom Thieves. Anne said, pumping a fist at her side. Alright, guys. Maybe we shouldn't celebrate so loudly. Said Makoto, though an unmistakable smile rested on her lips too. Still, it is a little exhilarating to see our efforts bearing fruit. Everything went perfectly and we got recognition for our work. I know, right man, with this, we'll be able to change way more people's hearts. Ryuji nodded fervently. Hell, we could do more than just get back at society at this rate. It'll be a huge deal. This isn't making anything better. Izuku tried to brush those words aside. Yeah. We'll make more people see that there are just some who need us. Definitely. If we keep this up, we'll be able to give courage to everyone who needs it. Anne nodded in agreement. No one else will be forgotten by society. Not while we're around, Yusuke added. Before anyone could add to the conversation though, two men hovered close by, one dressed in a suit while the other was a police officer. We may want to quiet down. Attendance officers. If they come over, act natural and follow my lead, whispered Makoto. It's Sunday, so they can't give us trouble for anything. Ryuji ground his teeth. TSK. Why they even bothering on a Sunday? He soon morphed his expression into a casual frown, watching as the officers approached them. Hello, there. May I speak with you all for a moment? Said the man in the suit and sunglasses. Ah, yes. How can we help you on this fine day, officer? Anne's voice carried an obviously forced cheerfulness to it. Morgana shivered. That monotonous acting of hers never fails to send a chill down my spine. What are you all doing here? Are you friends? The officer continued, the other remaining silent as he watched them analytically. Why yes, officer. We were all just meeting here to go out for lunch. It is a Sunday, after all. No reason we can't spend the day out as friends, correct? The others grimaced as Makoto's attempts at deception. Kodo-sen's having trouble too, Izuku mumbled under his breath. I see. Well, okay then. Just make sure you all disperse before it gets too late, okay? There have been some odd happenings lately, and the news about the artist has caused quite a stir. The officer continued. We'll be careful. Anne nodded quickly. The officers gave a curt nod before leaving them be, causing the group to breathe a unanimous sigh of relief. It still lied out. Man, those guys must have way too much time on their hands, Ryuji huffed in annoyance. Anne beamed at Makoto. Good job, Makoto. I think we got by thanks to our acting. I think we've gotten better since our little debacle with Yusuke-kun, Makoto nodded eagerly. Izuku felt an eyebrow twitch. That was better. If it makes you feel better, I'd say just as bad, Morgana shook his head. That aside, we'll need to be even more cautious than before. A lot more people know the Phantom Thieves now, so that also means a lot more eyes will be watching us. I mean, look at us. Right after both incidents, both prior victims are meeting up. The cheery mood evaporated. You mean people are watching us? Anne asked. It wouldn't be out of the question. I'm sure that if things were different or if Kabayakawa had chosen someone else, there would be someone watching us as we speak. Makoto agreed, her gaze hardening. We'll be fine. Now that you're on our side, we don't gotta think about it too much, right? Ryuji shrugged. We're the only ones worrying about it right now. I guess you're right, Anne said hesitantly. No, Kodo-san and Morgana-san are right. Izuku's brow furrowed. We still need to exercise caution. We don't know how serious the police are taking us yet, but ideally they won't take kindly to it. It seems reasonable enough for us to be more aware of our surroundings, I suppose. Yusuke nodded in agreement. Alright. Guess you guys are right, Ryuji relented before turning to Yusuke. By the way, were you ever able to get anything out of Madaram? You know, about that guy in the black mask. Yusuke shook his head. I pressed him for answers, but there wasn't much he could say. Everything that happened did occur in his subconscious, after all. Yeah, it's hard to imagine he would have anything to tell us about it, said Izuku, holding his chin in thought. We'll just have to try and keep an eye out the next time we tackle a palace. I don't know if it's a coincidence, but the man in the black mask is targeting people with palaces. But since we handled Madaram's, it looks like we don't have anything else to go off of. And Madaram is likely to go to jail for his crimes. If that's the case, questioning him further will be difficult, Yusuke added. Ryuji crossed his arms. Yes, so, what are you gonna do now? I'll be leaving that place. It's no longer somewhere that I can draw. Do you have somewhere to go? Asked Anne. The school dorms. Thanks to the fine art scholarship I received, I'm allowed to stay there for free, Yusuke explained. Ryuji's jaw dropped. A scholarship? Just how damn good are you at drawing? Although Yusuke turned to Anne. Takamaki-san's house do just as well. Wait, what? You know, you could ask her to model for you anytime you want if you did that, Ryuji teased, grinning at the twin-tailed blonde. You moron. Anne huffed, glaring at Ryuji. Then again, it'll be easier for us to meet up now that Yusuke's living alone. Ryuji said, looking back at the artist. For the time being, we should wait and see how this case plays out, Yusuke suggested, rolling his neck out. Plus it'll take time to find a target as big as Madaram, anyway, Ryuji sighed. I guess that means we're just going to have to act like normal students as usual while we look for our next target, Anne nodded. "We'll leave finding our next target to you then, Ryuji," Morgana said, looking at the faux blonde. "Alright, guess it's just more prep till then." Ryuji nodded in acceptance. "Just remember, everyone needs to make sure that they don't draw too much attention to themselves in this coming month." "We don't need any more prying eyes prying than we already have," Makoto said, crossing her arms over her chest. Everyone nodded in agreement, picking up their bags and departing for the day. The suspect has repeatedly testified that he does not have any further recollection of his actions. A full psychiatric evaluation will be performed to further investigate the crime's detail and motives, as well as any sign of a possible quirk used in the situation. First Kamoshida at Shujin Academy, and now Madaram, Sei Naijima paused the television before turning to the lone man in the room. He was the Special Investigations Unit Director, a balding codger who never seemed to leave his desk. "I've found commonality between the two, including the fact that a calling card was sent to both days prior to their unforeseen changes of heart." "I see. But isn't tying their cases to the psychotic breakdowns jumping to conclusions?" he asked, raising a brow skeptically. "Furthermore, the police aren't going to appreciate you stepping in on their case. This isn't the time for jurisdiction or honor. We need to dig deeper and find a correlation between these incidents in these past 2-3 years." The SU director breathed out a sigh, leaning the bridge of his brow against his linked hands in front of him. "Very well. I'll leave it to you. But don't let this interfere with your regular duties." "Thank you, sir." Sei bowed in appreciation, straightening back out before taking her leave. The SU director waited a moment until she closed the door behind her. "TSK. That damn woman has to stick her nose into this." Sei went to her office and picked up her briefcase, slinging it over her shoulder, before moving down the steps toward the main lobby of the courthouse. "Ah, there you are. I thought you would make me wait forever." Sei's gaze trailed up, seeing a familiar young man waiting at the center of the steps. He was in his late teens wearing a high school uniform of what most would assume to be a preparatory school, wearing a button-up white shirt with a pinstripe necktie. He had shaggy chin-length brown hair and reddish-brown eyes. "Sorry to have called you at the last minute, Akechi. I wanted to get your opinion again," Sei said, walking past him toward the bottom of the stairs. "Well, I wasn't surprised. Today's broadcast was certainly something to behold." The boy, Akechi, chuckled, trailing just behind her. "Shall we do lunch again?" "Yes." Sei came to a stop at the center of the bottom steps, sparing a look around. "What is it?" Akechi asked, tilting his head in question. "Strange. I figured you would be here by now as well," Sei said, looking back at Akechi. "Have you? Here I am." Akechi nearly jumped out of his skin when a young man's face poked through the railing next to him. Right through the railing panel, as if it were a ghost. Sei raised a brow before letting out a sigh. "You're certainly in a good mood to be pulling off pranks, Tagada." Sorry," said the face before retracting from the railing panel as if it hadn't been there. Walking around to the front of the stairs was a young man with blonde hair styled like a cowlick up top, well combed down on the sides. He had round blue eyes and wore the UA school uniform, minus the blazer. In contrast to Akechi, who was slim, Mirio was built like a brick house. His short-sleeved dress shirt did little to hide his bulging arms, as well as faint scars earned while battling villains. "I just thought I would pop in and see if I could surprise the always stoic Akechi-kun." "Well, you certainly accomplished that." Akechi sheepishly laughed, his lips forming into a strained smile. "It's good to see you, Mirio-san. You as well." "Sa-san called us both in, huh?" Mirio said with an exasperated wave of his hand. "Looking forward to brainstorming together." "So, we getting food?" "Yes. Since you're both here, we'll get ramen," said Sei. The smile Mirio flashed could light up the room. "Yes. Ramen sounds perfect right now. I have to say, I'm somewhat hurt by your show of favoritism, Sei-san." Akechi punctuated the thought with a dour sigh. "We're going to go with Tagada-san's favorite instead of mine." Sei shrugged before giving them a grin of her own. "Ramen is cheaper than sushi, even on a conveyor belt. If you have a complaint, you could always purchase the sushi yourself." "Oh, you can be so cruel sometimes, Sei-san," Akechi chuckled, shaking his head. "Don't worry, Akechi-kun. Today we'll try some new ramen that will fit your palate better," Mirio said, slapping him on the shoulder kindly before skipping ahead of Sei. "Come on. I know a good place nearby." Sei and Akechi watched the excitable hero in training jog through the courthouse lobby, the former releasing a sigh while Akechi scratched his cheek. "You seem to bring us both in quite a bit lately, Akechi spared a look at Sei. "Taking a shine to our soon-to-be hero, are we?" As carefree as Tagada acts, he brings an interesting perspective into the equation. You both have insight that, while at times conflicting, helps to account for all possible issues. "I understand. He certainly makes for an interesting chess partner, as well," Akechi chuckled, nodding in agreement as he and Sei moved forward to follow Mirio. Did you guys hear about those phantom thieves of hearts? Bakugo couldn't have cared less about what Raccoon Eyes was screeching about. She was slamming her hands on one of the desks at the front. To his irritation, most of the other extras seemed interested in the topic. Oh, yeah. I saw part of that press conference about the old man, too. Don't know what the big deal was, said Dun's face with a stupid look of contemplation. TSK. Could you idiots be any louder? Bakugo muttered as he tried to tune them out. You don't know, Kaminari-san. He was a world-renowned artist. His paintings were worth millions. But now I can't help but wonder what will become of them. Ponytail's voice trailed off towards the end. Some of it was really good. I hope the right people get credit for their hard work, now. Still, you gotta admit that those phantom thieves sound pretty manly. This time it was a somewhat less irritating voice, weird hair, speaking this time. They exposed that guy for the fake that he was. But Kirishima-chan, the phantom thieves are still acting as vigilantes. Even if what they did is good, it's still a criminal act, Bakugo heard Froggy say with that irritating neutrality of hers. I know. That's not good and all, but someone had to stand up for those people, right? You have to respect how they were able to put a stop to it. I agree with Kirishima-kun. Those phantom thieves sound pretty cool. Piped round face. Her usual energy was enough to make Bakugo click his tongue in annoyance. Leaving a calling card and making him confess to all his crimes, it's kinda romantic, don't you think? Phantom thieves stealing hearts from evildoers in the dark of night in pursuit of justice, impressive. What was Birdface blabbering about this time? Right, maybe they're like those guys from the old cartoons. Raccoon Eyes squealed before breathing a dreamy sigh. They're on the wrong side of the law, but really they're just dashing rogues trying to do right in their own way. Maybe when we're all heroes, they'll be like frenemies. WHOA, I like that idea. I want to have a super handsome thief guy to banter with. Bakugo could only imagine that it was Invisible Chick who would chime in with the rest of the idiots. TSK. Girls are always into those bad boy types. Those bastard phantom thieves. Bakugo had half a mind to turn around and tell the grape shit to quit bitching with his whiny voice and die. What do you think, Bakugo? Even you had to hear about it by now. Bakugo cracked his eyes open momentarily to glare at weird hair. Like I care. They're probably a bunch of idiots getting in over their heads. He crossed his arms over his chest before shutting his eyes again. Surprising no one, Bakugo's acting too cool for even the phantom thieves. Quiet, Dun's face. That seemed to be enough to make the electric bastard stumble in his seat. I wonder why it only surfaced now, though. This time it was ears pitching in. How many of these idiots are gonna join in? If people were getting abused and he was knowingly stealing their art, how come no one spoke up? It's not easy. Even as his anger started to boil over, he couldn't help but glance back when the half-and-half bastard of all people spoke up. The rest of the class seemed to share the sentiment, turning to face its strongest member with looks of confusion. For some people to admit when the person raising them is hurting them. The hell is that supposed to mean? Bakugo narrowed the single open eye at half and half. The classroom door swung open, bringing the explosive teen's attention back to the front. Of course Glasses was stomping his way inside. Everyone, please get to your assigned seats. Class is about to start. Bakugo reluctantly sat up in his seat, not wanting to hear any crap from Izawa, at least. We're all at our seats, dude. Said Dun's face. Bakugo didn't need to see Glasses' face to know that he was cringing in embarrassment before quietly taking his own seat. Good job, Ida. Izawa's voice grumbled through the door, Bakugo's eyes shifting ever so slightly to it. Seeing his homeroom teacher cocooned in a sleeping bag and hauled to class by fake Glasses was a familiar sight at this point. Just put me on the podium. Right. Bakugo hated how quiet he was. Unlike half-and-half bastard who always shot ice from range, fake Glasses was different in a fight. Aggressive and almost bloodthirsty. That quiet kid act doesn't fool me, bastard. Thanks, Amamiya. Class doesn't start for a few minutes, so get whatever chit-chat you have out of your systems now. Izawa advised the class. After setting their teacher down on the podium, fake Glasses walked to his chair, which happened to be behind Bakugo. The two exchanged a small glance, which was far too common to not piss the explosive blonde off constantly. Of course, nothing ever came of it, as he only would return to his seat without a word. Hey Amamiya. Izawa-sensei make you work early? Raccoon Eyes giggled, her voice bubblier than usual. Not that Bakugo cared, but it grated his ears when half the girls in the class would speak to him in some sort of overly cheerful tone. A little bit. But it was nothing big. Who knew you'd be such a hard worker, Invisible Chick added. Bakugo could only grind his teeth and watch the clock as he waited for the idiots around him to finally shut up. So, Amamiya-kun. What do you think of the phantom thieves? It was ears chipping in this time, her voice far more awkward than the rest of fake Glasses fangirls. Everyone was talking about them earlier. The phantom thieves, huh? He answered with a thoughtful hum. I think they're pretty cool. Even if their methods are questionable. Right, that's what we were saying. Bakugo's eye twitched at how fast Raccoon Eyes answered him. "Ring class has officially started. So everyone, be quiet." "Yes, sir." "You have to admit that those phantom thieves did a real service, huh?" Kazuho Haneama couldn't be bothered to stifle the sigh that escaped her mouth when she heard Koichi say that. She slid the skin-tight black leotard over her waist and looped her arms through the top. Once it was secure on her upper body, she stuck her head out from behind the curtain she used to change. "Will you shut up about them already?" "They're nothing special," she huffed before sliding behind the curtain again, picking up her elbow-length gloves and sliding on the left one first. "Oh, come on. Aren't you a little impressed? I mean, sure, we help people on the streets and stop punks now and again, but those guys took down a huge bad guy. I've been reading into the whole story ever since his confession, and so many people were affected by what he did." The All Might superfan was still staring at his phone, scrolling through article after article. "Of course you have," Kazuho rolled her eyes, slipping on her right glove before peeking out again. "Shouldn't you be pissed off, though? We've been doing this vigilante stuff for a while, and no one even bats an eye about it. But they take down one guy and they're the talk of the town. There's nothing wrong with that. Sure, they get credit, but they still have to be pretty secretive about what they're doing. We can go out pretty often without having to worry too much on our own." Koichi shrugged. "What's your problem with them?" Her eyes trailed to the side. "I don't have a problem. She's just upset that the press conference stole attention away from her concert." Kazuho jumped when she heard Knuckledister's voice. He sat at the edge of the short table, sipping on a beer before letting out a burp. "Oh right. You were performing when that happened yesterday." Kazuho ground her teeth as he continued. "You had your entire crowd pulled away before you could even start, huh?" He laughed. "Shut up. I don't need you rubbing it in. They just had to air that everywhere. Stupid phantom thieves, kid's right, though. Getting that kind of notoriety would be bad for us." Knuckledister flipped through another page of the newspaper. "Let them have all the fame." She tugged her thigh-high boots on. "That's easy for you to say, old man. I'm trying to become an idol. I can't be considered legit if I don't have a crowd. That's not important right now. We need to start looking into that drug." "You mean the trigger stuff? We hit a pretty big dead end on that one." Koichi trailed off thoughtfully. "No. That one's important, but I'm more worried about that quirk-stopping bullet that hit you," Knuckledister explained, the wide eye holes of his mask narrowing. "Oh, right. Koichi's quirk turned off for a couple hours, right?" Kazuho walked out from behind the curtain, now fully dressed. "That was pretty crazy." Kazuho wouldn't say it out loud, but her heart had stopped when she thought Koichi had been shot by a legit bullet. She almost burst into tears when she went to check on him. "Yeah. I've never seen anything like that before. Don't know where the guy got it from either." Knuckledister rubbed the 5 o'clock shadow on his chin. "Hate to say it, but we might have to focus on that instead of trigger until something comes up." Koichi shrugged. "Is it really that bad? I mean, it sucked to not be able to use my quirk for a little, but it came back to me." "You idiot. Having your quirk stop working like that is a big deal. There's never been a case of that happening before." Kazuho pointed her index finger at him. "Don't take something like that so lightly. And we don't know if that's the end of it, either," said Knuckledister. "What we saw could just be a precursor to something stronger. Something that might take away someone's quirk permanently." Koichi and Kazuho widened their eyes, sparing a look at one another in concern. What should we do then?" asked Koichi. Of course he wants to do something about it. Kazuho both hated and admired that about him. "For now, lay low. I'm gonna try and reach out and get some info from the local punks and gangs, see what we can dig up." Koichi and Kazuho both grimaced. "So basically, you're gonna run around beating up idiots for info again?" She groaned. "If it works, it works. It doesn't work when you just pick random punks. Especially when you knock them out before you can even question them." "Well, we've got a lot of punks to work with, so it should be fine." Koichi could only let out a strained chuckle. "That's sensei for you, unbelievable. By the way, that means I'm not gonna be doing security for your concerts for a while." "Again, come on. You good for nothing, old man. I need new help already." "Aw, come on, Pop. Chill." A skeleton of a man sat alone in a Big Bang Burger, his eyes distant as he stared out the restaurant window. He wore a loose hanging dress shirt that clung to the edges of his thin frame, a blue tie dangling from his neck with black slacks. He had long unkempt blonde hair, with 2 extremely long bangs along the ridge of his face. Today, after the backlash from Madaram's confession to fraud and abuse at his own press conference, police have contacted a number of his previous pupils. The thin man's head slowly shifted to the television, a pit building in his gut as the newscaster continued. So far, several confirmed that the former artist had indeed taken their works and claimed them as his own. Police are continuing to investigate just how deep Madaram's crimes go. "We now bring you over to So Even Now, I'm Not Doing Enough. Just like I thought, hey. The skeletal man's eyes fell away from the television, a small smile forcing its way onto his thin face. Sorry I'm late, Yagi-san. Don't mention it, Tsukauchi. Take a seat. I figured you'd be busy after yesterday. The thin man, Toshinori, nodded in understanding as he motioned to the seat across from him. How are things at the police station? Hectic is one way of putting it. But at this point, it feels like an understatement, his friend answered. He slumped into his seat with a tired sigh and set aside his tan fedora. Tsukauchi was built like the ideal police officer, tall and broad-shouldered with a face anyone could trust. There has been a lot of running around to deal with the Madaram scandal, as well as another review from the IAB into some of our officers. Another one? Toshinori asked, genuinely surprised. Judging from the interviews with Madaram's former pupils, those who had gone to the police were either ignored or even arrested for slander. Tsukauchi rubbed a hand along his face. This whole thing is revealing more than we would have liked. Toshinori felt as though a new hole was tearing into his non-existent stomach. I see. That's unfortunate. Am I failing to inspire even our very own police officers? Yeah, but I suppose it's a good thing, even if it's inconvenient at the time, Tsukauchi leaning back in his chair. We're at least weeding out the corrupt officers running around. But it certainly hurts to know that we've had so many right under our noses. There's no way you could have known. Tsukauchi shook his head. It's okay, I know. I just thought that we, as a society, were past those kind of things. That the men and women of the force were striving toward that honest image and upholding it. Tsukauchi crossed his arms over his chest, shaking his head. But I suppose I was being too naive. Toshinori's gaze fell to the table, Tsukauchi unknowingly echoing a lingering thought of his own. Perhaps we both were. The two stood in their thoughts until Tsukauchi broke the silence. Well, that aside, how are you doing? You haven't been slowing down too much lately, have you? Toshinori let out a sheepish chuckle. Well, it's hard when things happen right in front of you. But thankfully my time period hasn't dropped substantially in some time, so it's not a big deal. But it is dropping, Yagi-san. However slowly, Tsukauchi frowned. I know you've been working as often as possible with the time you're allowed, but don't you think it's time to reconsider? I'm sure if you spoke with Nezu-san again, he'd be willing to work you into the school schedule even this late into the year. Toshinori frowned again as he leveled his gaze back at Tsukauchi. The people that made Madaram confess they're called the Phantom Thieves of Hearts, right? The Phantom Thieves. Tsukauchi repeated, raising a brow in wonder. Yes, that's them. Their calling card were collected back at Madaram's exhibit. Why? What do you think of them, Tsukauchi? Well, at first I thought it might have been the work of a disgruntled student. That's still possible, but now their reach is extending far beyond Shujin Academy. I was understanding of their position in the first confession, but now I can't help but think of them as nothing more than criminals. They're using their quirk illegally and recklessly. Sure, we know about Kamoshida and Madaram, but where does this stop? What's their final goal? Toshinori nodded in understanding, his eyes drifting back out to the window. He watched the denizens of Musatafu passing by with a somber expression on his face. I think that the Phantom Thieves are a result of my failure. Tsukauchi's breath caught in his throat. What? Your failure? What are you talking about? I'm supposed to be the symbol of peace. I'm supposed to inspire people to stand up for themselves without fear. Toshinori's fist tightening on the table in front of him. But after being injured I couldn't help but wonder if I was still doing enough. If taking it easy or spending my time teaching would begin to make people think I was neglectful of that. So I kept pushing. I kept fighting. I didn't want to let the influence of All Might slip away from the people's minds. Toshinori's worn and weary eyes trailed back to Tsukauchi. But it was all for nothing. Evil men are still committing heinous crimes. Children are still suffering under the influence of horrible men like that Kamoshida and now this Madaram fellow. Even worse, they had the help of men who swore to protect and serve the people they abused. Tsukauchi's expression fell at that, looking down in shame. Despite their methods, the Phantom Thieves are the result of my failure to reach every person. And it hurts to know that. But Yagi-san, you know that you can't save everyone. I'm well aware. It's what I told myself when I saw the news of Kamoshida's abuse. That I couldn't have known. But my influence is supposed to reach those who need it, rather than myself. Perhaps the influence of the symbol of peace has weakened in these past years. Toshinori declared, his brow hardening. I can't stop until I've done what I can to fix that. Tsukauchi's voice fell to a low whisper, his breath trembling. But if you don't stop soon you're going to die. You can't keep pushing yourself until you drop. What about? Don't worry, I'm still considering Night Eye's ward. But not yet. If I give him the power now, it will slowly begin to fade from me. I will pass on the power, but not until I've done all I can as the symbol of peace. Tsukauchi felt conflicting emotions rise, both relieved to hear that he was ready to pass it on, but also worried that Toshinori would push himself beyond his limits before then. Knowing him well, the police officer had little doubt that the latter was highly probable. Yagi-san, your work as the symbol of peace is simply amazing. But that doesn't mean that villains will just disappear. There's always going to be evildoers out there. And you shouldn't feel guilty because they're around. No, I promised my master I would create a world she could look on with pride. This past month shows that Tashinori was cut off when he hacked for air, blood dripping at the edges of his mouth. Tsukauchi quickly reached for a napkin, but Tashinori held a hand up, waving him off. I'm okay. Yagi-san, if you keep pushing like this, I can only keep pushing, Tsukauchi. Only until I've made sure that I've done all I can before passing on my power, Tashinori declared, determination blazing in his icy blue eyes. I'll go plus ultra in this next year. Then I will be ready. Tashinori didn't mention a specific but important detail. Something that was still a secret between both him and Night Eye. But at the moment, this was the furthest thing from Tashinori's mind. Their conversation came to an abrupt end when the Big Bang Burger shook. The two raised a brow before looking out the window. A giant balloon man was lumbering through the streets and crushing cars underfoot. Don't hire me, I'll show you all. I can do office work. Tsukauchi and Tashinori stared in befuddlement before the lanky man stood from his seat. I suppose that's my cue. Well, you know what I'll say, but it won't stop you. Tsukauchi sighed, giving a nod. Good luck out there, All Might. Right. Leave it to me. Tashinori grinned widely before running outside and into the alley. Not long afterward, the number one hero erupted onto the scene and smashed his fist into the balloon man. Disgruntled or not, you won't be allowed to take your frustrations out on everyday citizens. All Might proclaimed. For I am here. Tsukauchi stood from his seat soon after, making sure to report the incident occurring outside. He watched as All Might continued to knock the giant off its feet. Please take care of yourself, All Might. A figure draped in a black trench coat quietly walked through the neon-lit streets of Kamino. His face was covered with a white surgical mask, his eyes hidden behind round-framed sunglasses, and his hair propped up in a fedora. Some might consider his appearance to be suspicious, but it was a common sight for strangely dressed people to lurk in the back alleys of Kamino. The citizens were too busy with their day-to-day problems to notice or simply didn't care. Anyone who might have paid him any mind simply kept walking. So when the figure walked into a shady hole in the wall bar, it didn't draw anyone's attention. Ah, young master. It's been some time since we last saw you here. The figure looked up to the bartender, a man made entirely of black mist, who stared back at him with pupilless yellow eyes. Hello, Kurogiri. He greeted, walking up to the bar and taking a seat before drawing the mask from his face, though leaving the glasses and fedora on. It seems things are quiet here. I thought Tamura-san might be loitering here as usual. Shigaraki has been anxious, lately. More so than usual, Kurogiri sighed, setting a cup down in front of the young man. It doesn't surprise me. He's been wanting to hunt down All Might for some time, now. But he hasn't shown any signs of slowing as of late. I'm sure it's driving Tamura-san mad. The disguised boy chuckled, looking down at his cup. Might I get a whiskey on the rocks? If you really want one. Though I don't believe you would want the smell of alcohol to ruin your image, Kurogiri said, crossing his arms behind his back. The young man chuckled, I suppose you have a point. I wasn't really interested anyways. Though it is nice to have the option available. Of course. It would hardly make sense to withhold a drink from you because you're underage. I believe we've both broken greater laws, Kurogiri gave a short laugh of his own. So, what brings you here, young master? Most of your reports have been over the phone. Tokyo is more than an hour away by bullet train. I simply wish to pay a visit. Tokyo certainly has its charms, but when you're constantly surrounded by intolerable snobs, it begins to wear on you, he shrugged with an amused smile. Besides, it can be rather fun to poke Tamura-san's buttons from time to time. The bell to the bar's front door chimed. Both Kurogiri and the disguised young man turned to face the newcomer standing in the doorway. It was a scruffy white-haired man decked out in all black. He glared at the boy sitting at the bar through one of many disembodied hands, decorating his upper half. TCH. Just the person I didn't want to see today. Ah, Tamura-san. Here I was expecting to only be entertained by Kurogiri tonight. The disguised young man smiled, turning in his chair with a shit-eating grin. Come and join us, would you? Just hurry up and leave, Tamura scoffed. He walked over to the bar and sat 2 seats away from him. Something strong, Kurogiri. I want to forget this guy is even here. Shigaraki, shut up and do it, idiot. I don't understand why you always mistreat Kurogiri, Tamura-san. He has done well by both of us, after all, good leaders don't push valuable subordinates away. The tone of his voice was too polite, condescending even. He knew this would grate on Shigaraki's nerves. Shut your trap. You're the last person I want advice from. Tamura snatched a cup of hard liquor out of Kurogiri's hands. Shouldn't you be back in Tokyo playing up that harmless good guy shtick? Well, I had a report to give to our master. I also thought I'd drop by and check on you. Figured you might like some company considering your inability to attack All Might like you wanted. You bastard, you just came to laugh at me." Tamura's blood-red eyes practically glowed in the dim-lit room. "Your lucky master won't let me kill you. Though I wonder if that applies to making that jaw of yours disintegrate. I'm sure your fans would love that. Come now, Tamura-san. Relying on threats now. You used to be so much better at throwing insults." He rested his cheek in one hand. "I think you're letting your anger get the better of you. Like a quirkless brat like you could understand. What I'm doing takes a lot more than a shit-eating smile for the cameras." The cup in his hand turned to dust in his grip. "Ah, there it is. It seems all you needed was some prodding. A few more drinks and maybe you'll forget your failure soon enough. You little alright, you too. That's enough. My Hero Academia asked. You can't run," a mirthful laugh echoed around them. The three immediately turned their attention to a television at the end of the bar. A figure shrouded in darkness appeared on the screen. "Greetings, sir," Kurogiri said with a polite bow. "Master," Tamura and the disguised young man uttered at the same time. "You two ever so love to tease one another." "Well, it's all in good humor, we all know where such banter can lead," their master said, his voice low but sweet to their ears. "We should be celebrating your reunion instead. After all, you've been stuck in Tokyo for some time. Sadly, I can't stay for long. After all, I do have an image to maintain." The young man smiled at the television. "Still, it's good to see you a bit more directly this time, master." "The same to you. I imagine things must be going well for you if you've come all the way to Kamino for your report. Is that man still ignorant to your true intentions?" "I do believe so. Even if he's aware, I'm far too useful for him to get rid of anytime soon. He'll likely bide his time. Well, I will do the same." The young man's smile grew into a devilish sneers. "Tch. You're just dragging this out longer than you should," Tamura scoffed, turning back to the bar and picking up his drink. "You should just hurry up and end him. You're just giving the final boss a chance to level up until he's too strong for you." "I appreciate the thought, Tamura-san, but I'll be doing this my way. Killing him would be too easy. I want him to have everything before losing everything." His voice dripped with hatred and resentment. Their master laughed heartily. "There's nothing wrong with proceeding with your plans at your own pace. But remember that my offer is still on the table. We can end him at a moment's notice. You only have to say the word. I do appreciate the offer. And if I feel that he's going to make a move earlier than originally guessed, I will take it into consideration." He gave a small bow of his head. "But I have to do this my way. Only then will I feel fulfilled. Only then will I be ready to accept a quirk from you, master." "I understand. We three all carry that same hatred. We must fulfill it in the ways most satisfying for us." His master chuckled. A machine beeped from his end of the screen. "So, was that all you wished to say?" The smile on the young man's face fell into a resting frown. "No, not entirely. I'm sure you've all heard of these phantom thieves of hearts by now, correct?" "Tch, yeah. Another group of do-gooders. What about them?" Tamura huffed, sipping from his drink. "I believe they're using methods similar to mine to cause these changes of heart in their victims." This brought Tamura and Kurogiri to pause. "I see. Someone else with access to that world like you." Their master linked his hands together. "Does this pose a problem to your plans?" "Not at all, but it's debatable if things will remain that way. If they continue to target bigger criminals, they just may end up with that man in their crosshairs. But I need to learn more about them before such an idea becomes palpable." "I see. Proceed with caution, then. Though I believe I don't need to tell you that." Their master nodded. "I'm sure you'll be able to deduce their intentions and identities in time. Though, would you like help dealing with them when the time comes?" "I should be fine alone. Whoever they are, I don't believe they have the same experience I do in that world. Besides, it might be fun to play them up a bit before setting up their ultimate downfall." The young man shrugged, leaning forward on the bar. "They might make for an interesting rival until the time comes. As things are now, I'm truly unopposed. Having someone to challenge might not be so bad. If that's what you believe, then go ahead. But temper your expectations and your pride." The warm voice turned grave. "An upstart can turn into your worst nightmare if left alone too long. Of course. I won't drop my guard simply for fun. I'll handle them all in time." Hanashiro grinned as one of his men opened a silver briefcase packed to the brim with money. "This is the earnings of the month, boss. Your plan to distribute those drugs around has been really taking off." His lackey praised. "Of course it did, moron. I'm a genius." He leaned over his spoils and pulling out a wad of cash. He listened to the yen flip as he dragged his thumb down the end. "What a beautiful sound. Looks like we're going to celebrate tonight. Why you're so amazing, honey." The arm candy next to him giggled, leaning over and allowing him to lock her hips with his. "We're proud to call you our boss." His lackeys chanted, each of them grinning. Well, don't just stand there. Get us some drinks. Kaneshiro ordered, causing his men to scramble. Yes, sir. Those idiots in the 8 precepts thought I couldn't do anything. But who needs a good quirk when you're so damn smart? Kaneshiro placed a stack back in the case before leaning back on the couch. I'll show those fools. Once I've made enough money, they'll understand who they doubted so much. Beat boss. Kaneshiro frowned when he heard one of the grunts yelp. The panic in his tone ruined Kaneshiro's good mood. What is it? It's HQ. They just called. Kaneshiro tensed up briefly, but he managed to regain his composure soon enough. What about them? Out with it already. They're on their way here. Every hair on Kaneshiro's body stood on end. Right now you're shitting me. What did they say? Yay, just that they were coming to pay you a visit. They didn't say why. The grunt squirmed under his gaze. Who exactly? Who's coming? They said the boss himself. Kaneshiro was perspirating before, but now he was drenched with sweat. And no Chisaki is. He stood up from the couch, tugging his arm away from his girlfriend. Get everyone out. Clear this club out before he gets here. Make sure it's clean as a fucking whistle. But babe, I thought we were you. Get the hell out. I don't have time for your shit right now. He threw her to the floor, not bothering to watch her run off and wail. And you. Take the money and put it in the back. Why yes, sir. We don't bother. It can stay. Kaneshiro's purple skin turned a paler shade, his arms falling limp at his sides. To his horror, the man he feared most waltzed in with complete disregard for the thugs standing around. He was a young man in his 20s, as gaunt and pale as the Grim Reaper himself. Purple fur lined the collar of the forest green bomber jacket he wore over a dark dress shirt and slacks. His piercing gold eyes contrasted sharply with his spiky black hair. The lower half of his face was completely hidden by a gold-tipped plague doctor's mask, while his hands were kept in surgical gloves. "BB boss." Kaneshiro whimpered. He immediately bowed his head in supplication. His men immediately followed suit. "Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here with us. I wish it was a pleasure to come here," Chisaki coughed as he took a whiff of the air. "This place is still a pigsty. I'm sorry that it's not up to your standard, sir. We'll try to improve from now on." Kaneshiro spewed out, raising his head to look at his subordinates. "Hey. Hurry up and bring a chair for the boss. And make sure it's clean." "Why yes, sir. It's alright. The couch seems fine." Chisaki sauntered over to the couch Kaneshiro had been sitting on. His eyes narrowed as he looked back at Kaneshiro. "Which part did you sit on?" Right, Hiroke." Chisaki immediately moved to the side that the fat gangster had not been sitting on. Kaneshiro would have normally been pissed or agitated by the action, but the overwhelming fear he felt dispelled that kind of thinking. "Someone come and prep this for me." "Yes, sir." Two grunts rushed over, brushed the cushion off, and laid out plastic wrap for him to sit on. Chisaki let out a small hum before nodding, taking a seat on the couch and crossing his arms. "Your men are well disciplined, Kaneshiro. I thought they'd all be slobs mucking the place up." Kaneshiro tried his best to make his laughter seem natural. "Oh of course, boss. I make sure my men know their place. Is that right?" His eyes bored into Kaneshiro's skull. "Because I get the feeling you don't know yours." Kaneshiro dropped to his knees and prostrated himself before him. Please forgive me, sir. I know exactly where my place is under you." "Do you?" "Funny." Kaneshiro swallowed hard when Chisaki opened the suitcase of yen. "Because this looks like a lot of money. Now, unless this dump is doing 20 times better than I estimated when I gave it to you, I can't help but feel that you're doing something else on the side." Well, sir, after I specifically told you not to." Kaneshiro summoned his courage, slowly raising his head and holding his hands up in surrender. I understand, boss. But you also said we needed to make more money. I simply set out with a plan and have been able to accumulate a vast amount of money in a short amount of time. All for the good of the clan, like you wanted. All for the clan, huh? Chisaki picked up a stack of cash and flipped through its contents. "Don't get me wrong. I've got no problem with the idea of peddling drugs. I don't care who you use or how. But the moment one of your men slips up or your little drug runners gets caught by a cop, it falls apart. We could easily silence any idiot who would cross us, though. We wouldn't, the heroes would be all over that. Say what you want about All Might, but he's made operations like this look like complete shitshows." Chisaki placed the money back in the case. "And if your drug peddling brought attention to us before we're ready to even begin trying to produce those bullets, we'd be dead in the water. All thanks to you." Kaneshiro grit his teeth, struggling to keep his disdain hidden. "This little shit. I've been doing this work while you were still in grade school. Don't act like you know better." But he kept his mouth shut and took it. He couldn't risk talking back to this man. "As much as we need more money, it won't mean anything if we end up getting busted before we can even use it." Chisaki continued, staring forward at the suitcase. This is a good amount of money, though. We'll accept this and put an end to your operation now before it gets too big. But, sir. I promise it can get bigger without causing too much noise. If only you would. Kaneshiro froze when Chisaki placed a hand on his shoulder. Kaneshiro. I'm well aware of the kind of man you are, he said, his voice void of any emotion. You're ambitious. People can't say what they want about you and your quirk, but I can tell. You don't need one to succeed. Huh? Kaneshiro blinked owlishly, staring wide-eyed at Chisaki in awe. Is he acknowledging me? You're a man who sees an opportunity and tries to make something good out of it. It's rather admirable. Kaneshiro felt his heart lighten. He never heard such praise from any of his brothers above him. Most had treated him like a joke, calling him a fat waste of space. This is in most cases, a man like you would be a valuable asset to me. Kaneshiro immediately tensed up when the fabric of his suit exploded from his body. His heart pounded in his ears when he realized that the surgical glove on Chisaki's right hand was missing. But that kind of ambition, it's just a hindrance. Kaneshiro wanted to cry out in pain. His skin and blood bubbled just from Chisaki's touch. He trembled viciously as he weakly attempted to wriggle free. Please, be boss, he squealed, tears streaming down his face. I can be valuable, no. Your problem is that you're too ambitious, Kaneshiro. I've got no doubt that you would turn on us eventually. Maybe even sell us out to some heroes and the police. Chisaki shook his head casually. Kaneshiro swelled up like a balloon ready to burst at the slightest touch. Maybe even use the drug peddling business to your advantage and point everyone our way. And I can't have that. Please, boss. I won't let anyone's ambition get in the way of my own. I'll pay back the boss pop and cure this world of its sickness. The blood drained from all of Kaneshiro's lackeys. It happened so quickly. None of them could process exactly what happened to their boss. Some of them vomited while others trembled where they stood, fearing what would come next. Shit, this is the worst part of doing this, Chisaki grumbled, whipping his arm to toss the blood off. Hey, one of you bring me a towel and alcohol wipes. Why yes, sir. The men scrambled for the requested items. None of them wanted to be the next target of Chisaki's terrifying quirk. He paid the goons no mind, narrowing his eyes as he scrubbed the blood off himself with a moist towelette he had in his pocket. So dirty, everything is so dirty, hives broke out across his face. The Yakuza boss growled and scrubbed even harder. I'll clean it all and anyone else who gets in my way. To be continued. This is the end of the video. If you enjoyed the story, then hit the like button and comment your favorite part, but for now, see you all in the next video.